live from Arlington, Texas. It is Scotty Braun, AJ Pierzynski, Erik Kratz, and JJ Cooper from Baseball America getting ready for the start of the draft. We're at the MLB Players House. We're at Texas Live right next to the ballpark, getting ready for a big night. We'll be on for hours. We'll have a ton of guests. JJ, great to see you. I want to get right to business, too, so that we can try and put out some predictions before the draft actually begins. So how excited are you? Sum up what the draft is like, and then give me some predictions for early on here.
I mean, this thing is a blast every year because you're seeing guys who've been working on this for their whole lives. And today's the day that their dreams are going to come true in some cases. We see, it's amazing to think that Paul Skeens was hearing his name called a year ago. He's already starting the All-Star game. It's amazing that these things can happen. My prediction right now, I expect to see Travis Bazana's name called first. And I didn't expect that not that long ago, and I said Weatherholt, but now it looks like Bazana.
Sitting next to JJ is like sitting next to one of your kids on Christmas morning at like 6:30 when all the presents are underneath the tree and you're not allowed to open them yet. That's where he's so excited that this is about to happen. He's just like, I want to rip open all the gifts and have it over with. He is excited and typing like he's going to start the keys on fire.
You got the prime seat.
I have the prime seat. I feel like I'm teacher's pet, me and JJ.
The difference is, though, is that JJ's been prepping this for like a year, right? Since last year when we were in Seattle to now here in Arlington. JJ's like, wait, I get to do it all over again. And now it's like the culmination of a year's worth of work. And then tonight when it starts and the picks start coming in. So if he says, what's his name, Bazana? Bazana, is that how you say it, right?
Travis Bazana.
Bazana.
Yeah.
If
he's going first, JJ said it, then he's going first.
That's your prediction.
All right, fine. Then give us 1 through 30.
Jim Callis did that for the first 18 one year, but that was the old
That's like
system.
the world record, right?
That is the world record that'll never be broken because the new system is not like that. But I do think we're going to see a lot of college bats go early, some college arms go early. I think it's not going to be a great year it's not a great high school class. We're not going to see a whole lot of high school hitters. We're definitely not going to see a whole lot of high school pitchers early on. We'll have to wait till later in the night to start hearing those names called.
Okay. And then also sum up how this year compares to last year, where we were coming off major attention from LSU winning and the big names that they had right at the top of the draft. There is a top-heavy component to this draft, right, in the top 10-ish, but it's not the same as last year.
Definitely not the same, especially when we get to the depth. But let's be clear. Paul Skeens, Wyatt Langford, if we can come half to that this year, it's a great draft because that's an all-star starter. That's an ace. He's already an ace. He's a big league ace 1 year later. Langford is a difference maker as a regular on a big league team already. We're probably not going to see that this year, but the top of this class, to their credit, has done a really good job of improving their stock from where we thought this was in January. You look at what Charlie Condon's done. You look at what Bazana's done. You look at what Weatherholt's done. You look at what Chase Burns, Hagen Smith. It's an impossible year to be a pitcher in college baseball this year. Home run record of all home run records, 7 runs a game in most games per team. And Hagen Smith and Chase Burns went out there and said, you know what? Don't have to worry about home runs if you strike everyone out.
But we didn't know Paul Skeens was going to do what he is doing. We knew he was going to be good.
His teammates knew.
JJ knew.
JJ did not know.
Dylan Cruz. Who did we talk to 2 days ago? Dylan Cruz and Trey Morgan.
Dylan Cruz.
They were like, oh, we're not surprised.
Not surprised? Yes. They didn't know what he was going to do. When you're drafting guys, and to me this is a credit to college baseball where it's come, how much guys have been, like you said, improved their draft stock, how much they've improved just the game, getting guys ready. Seeing Dylan Cruz yesterday in the Futures game, the balls he was hitting, dudes don't come out of college hitting balls like that quickly. And I think it's a credit to what the SEC, the ACC, those big conferences are doing right now with the technology and getting players ready.
I think you look at it now, the other thing that's happening, for good and bad, is the college game is getting more concentrated. So it used to be that, hey, Cinderella stories all abounded in college baseball. Now the SEC has half of the College World Series field most every year. They have most of the top, the top talent in the draft. And so you see these guys. I'll go Mike Tomlinism, iron sharpens iron, right? So you have these guys. You have the best hitters and the best pitchers facing each other week in, week out. ACC has this something as well. It's not the only place, the SEC. But you see that, and that also kind of makes college baseball at its top end a little bit more of a, it sharpens these guys. It shapes these guys to be more ready if you're the best.
I think some people have a hard time understanding how the MLB draft works versus other drafts, in that the top talent on the board for BA, for Baseball America, is Charlie Condon, but he is not likely to be the first overall pick. Why is that? Can you help to explain how the money works in an MLB draft where it doesn't work that way in other drafts? You don't like it, Kratz?
I don't like it, but explain it. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to explain it. So it would be great to say that this is where the top talent goes one, the second goes second, the third goes third. But it also probably makes it a little bit more precise than there is. If you look at the number one pick, 2000 to 2015, about 30% of the time, that player has a case, not slam dunk, but has a case to have been the best player taken in that first round, right? Well, and a lot of times they don't even have any kind of case. Like, oh, you should have taken the guy at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So if you put that together, what you end up having is teams look at this and they, instead of saying who's the best guy, they say, maybe we think this guy has a 35% chance to be the best guy. This guy is a 33%. This guy's a 31%. But the 31's willing to take $1.5 million less. Maybe we get Gunnar Henderson in the second round with the money we save. Doesn't work that way usually. Usually you get Gunnar Jones or something that's not nearly the same. But that's what teams are thinking is hey, if it means that we get another couple of chips to put at the roulette wheel, let's try it and see if we can get that too.
And people at home are like, that is the nerdiest system ever.
It's like teams that trade for 5 guys instead of trading for 1 or 2 slam dunk guys. Like, oh, we'll take 5 of them.
I'll take it even further. How about when we get to the trade deadline and some teams make the decision on if they're going to go for it for the rest of the year based on what their return would be in a trade for some of their players.
Yep.
Like, oh, if we can get this level for these guys, then like we'll try the rest of the year, but if not, nah. So I don't know. I just think it's a weird format, don't you? And it's hard for me. It's hard to explain it to a casual fan. And if we're trying to bring more people into the MLB draft and caring about it, right now you're watching from home and you're like, wait, the best player doesn't go first?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Weird.
Most of the time, but then again, if you look at the NFL draft, which is kind of like the gold standard, if quarterbacks go first, and they might not be the best player, but you need a quarterback, right?
Sure.
So
you still understand it.
Yes, but in baseball, you can say, I'll take a shortstop, and then you can move him to second base, or you can maybe move him to third, you can move him to the outfield.
Yeah,
Jackson
that's a good
Merrill.
point.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be the best player, or it could be the best player.
Right, because if you can move him around, that should help. And my thing is, like, J.J. Weatherholt's a good example. There's a chance that he goes number 1 to Cleveland, and then you're reading that there's a chance that if he doesn't go number 1, he could go number 5, 6, or 7. And if I'm watching from home, I'm like, huh? He's 1 or maybe 6? That's where people have a hard time understanding how the system works.
And the tricky part also of this is that these boards are, like, we try to say our board, we're trying to reflect industry consensus. That does get tougher because the industry, especially this draft, after you get past 10, some teams may have a guy 12 that other teams have at 42. There's not that try. So with a guy like Weatherholt, some teams may have him 1, 2, or 3 on their board, but if the teams that are right after that don't have him 1, 2, 3, it doesn't matter. If the Yankees have J.J. Weatherholt at the top of their board, it doesn't really matter because they're not getting to pick J.J. Weatherholt. All the teams at the back don't matter for that. It matters kind of that fit of who's going to take you at 2, who's going to take you at 3, who's going to take you at 4, and that's where this gets really tricky. And that's where this is a night where agents earn their money too, because a good agent knows that and gets you slotted well, and a bad agency, they may have or has a bad night, let's put it that way, doesn't know that, and all of a sudden you see a guy who you thought was going to go 5 end up going for slot at 15 because when blood's in the water, they're not going to throw you a life preserver. They're going to be like, hey, I don't care if you thought you were going to get $4 million here. We're picking here, and we're happy to give off your 3. And if you don't, you can go back to school.
All right, so let's go over some other names that we're going to hear picked. I mean, I'll ask for some favorites. I know JJ probably has quite a few. Do you want to? I was going to go to you first because I figured maybe the University of Florida guy should get some love from you. He's going to go in the top 10. We don't know where, but Jack Caglione.
Well, I just don't understand. Like, you're talking about the best player. Well, that guy, I mean, yes, Charlie Condon had probably a better year. But if you look at Jack Caglione, you take out the pitching. He's not going to pitch, right? But you look at his 2 years and a handful of games his freshman year, and what the adjustments he made, right? They say he struck out too much. We went from like 20% strikeouts to like 8%. Oh, he doesn't walk. He went from like 8% to like over 20% walks.
Completely
right?
flip-flopped.
I mean, he completely flip-flopped it. He doesn't chase. He didn't chase. He hit lefties. He hits homers.
Yes.
He can run. He's gigantic. I don't understand. And then people are like, he's falling down the board. Well, he did everything you asked him to do, and he's falling. Why?
In the best conference.
Yeah, against the best players.
And that's the thing I'd also point out is you're talking about your D1 batting champ, your D1 home run champ, was in the top 3 in OBP, didn't strike out, played played third, center, left, right, first. Not going to be a great defender, but not going to be a stiff who just can play first either. And as you said, this is the guy who you saw week in, week out facing guys who are going to hear their names called tonight and tomorrow. And that also gives you some comfort when you like, I worked this up, at the time of the College World Series. Charlie Condon had as many games against teams in the College World Series in Omaha, the Final 8, as Travis Bazzana had against teams who made the field of 64. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's crazy. My thing, because of how now the draft is a lottery, we have teams that are in a playoff hunt that are up at these picks. And I'd be remiss if I wouldn't talk about, because we're at the Alumni Association, the great Brandon Finnegan is standing right over there. Right over there. He helped us go to Game 7 of the World Series. Is there anybody, because of how it's flipped, it's not all just the worst teams that are picking at the top. Is there anybody that you see getting drafted and being in the big leagues this year to help a playoff team? And that's why I bring up Chase Burns.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where Chase Burns goes, right?
Yeah.
But if Chase Burns, if a team's like, hey, can Chase Burns especially help us in our pen at the end of this year? Yeah. If you said that the bar is he better than our worst arm in our pen? Yes. Now, I would also bring up a hitter, though, because the problem with the pitchers that you always run into is these guys have just gotten shut down, right? It's now far enough removed from the college season that they've ramped down. And a lot of teams now with pitchers, they're like, I don't want to ramp them back up. Most of the pitchers, if you look at it, Paul Skeens did throw, but like Rhett Lauder went at the top of it. And I kind of wondered. Oh,
and I'll stop you guys because we got the first overall pick.
Good. I don't look bad for my tweet because I said I thought that was going to happen. So
Travis Bazzana.
I don't look stupid.
Well
I'm
done.
done. 1-1. I'm checking out. I'm checking out.
No, we need
Stay hot, or maybe you just call it.
Let me ask this. Does Bazzana have enough power, though, to supplement, or I don't know, supplement's maybe not the right word, to say he should have gone ahead of Charlie Condon? Because Charlie Condon
He's a very different player. Right. But I will say for Bazzana, to his credit, he knew going into this year that was the biggest question he faced. So what did he do all offseason, all last summer, last winter? Worked on it, got bigger, got stronger, improved his bat speed. And so he did really see a power jump this year, which, by the way, also does encourage me. You like when you see guys who show, you talked about with Charlie Condon, you want to see guys who take a weakness and at least turn it into something that's no longer a weakness, if not a strength. Bazzana's done that. Bazzana is athletic. The one thing, now again, this goes back to the other crazy thing that people who pay attention to other drafts more than MLB may look at and say, the weird part of this also is Bazzana's a second baseman. He could play in the outfield probably if you want him to. He's not going to play shortstop. And you look at the Guardians, he could maybe play third, but with the Guardians, he's not going to play third. Best player on the team played there, and he's there long term. They got a guy locked up long-term at second as well. Before too long, this could be an interesting kind of decision to make about where you're going to play him if you don't think, it is the Guardians. They could also move. They could make a trade that clears space, but otherwise, at some point, he may have a position move coming down the road for him.
So 2 questions about Bazzana. What do you think about the competition that he faced this year at Oregon State? And number 2, how much do you think this pick will lead to Cleveland paying overslap for some other picks coming up? Do you think this is one of those situations?
Everyone's going to be underslot compared to what the bonus is here. The bonus pool for 1-1 is like a mil more than what Skeens got last year, and I don't think anyone's getting. Carlos for us is first said this, but
it's 10.5, right? It's about 10.5. He's not getting that.
He's not getting that. No, but no one was getting that.
No one would. Okay.
No one in this class. To get that, you have to be a Skeens type where it's like, look, I'm unique, I'm special. Strasburg, Harper, Skeens, Adley, those kind of guys.
If you don't do it, 2 or 3 will do it. They'll pay overslot. Yeah.
But I would say, though, when you talk about the competition, now he has a long track record, Australian. It's an interesting background. He's an Australian guy who's played in the Australian Baseball League. Not a whole lot of guys have played in a kind of a professional winter league, but he has. He has a long track record. But if you look at it this year, 7 games this year, 18 plate appearances against pitchers in our top 500. Now, that's not a whole lot. He was great. 429, 556, 929. Did strike out a good bit, though. He struck out a lot when he faced top-level pitching this year, the top teams. But at the same time, I don't want to make it sound like he also performed. Like, he hit 429 while striking out. It was a small sample, but it's not something where this guy hasn't performed. He's performed. He doesn't have, though, that track record this year of facing as many top arms as the Charlie Condon especially.
Okay. And then you mentioned Condon at the back end of your sentence there. Is he not pretty much a lock for number 2 now to Cincinnati? Everyone's been saying, I'm not exactly sure about 1, but if Condon doesn't go 1, Reds won't let him slip past them. Do you agree with that?
I would expect Condon to go 2 here. And when you ask the question of who could go up and help this year, if the Reds are in it and Charlie Condon, because he's a position player, so they will send him out and he'll go. And if he goes and he dominates high A for a week and then dominates double A, and then you turn around, he's in Louisville and it's late August, September.
This year,
then you could talk about,
we just got the next pick.
Wow.
Number 2 to the Cincinnati Reds is Chase Burns. Going with the pitching route, which is up their alley. They've done this, right? High-level picks, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, who they took last year.
2 years ago, 2 years in a row, they take Wake's ace. Rhett Lauder last year.
Lauder,
Chase Burns.
Right.
Is this a shock, though? I didn't see this on any mocks.
I'm surprised, yeah. Okay. I did not see this coming. Now, the interesting thing about it is, you mentioned this is a team that is in the hunt, but last year they took Lauder, and they had more pitching issues last year than they have this year. They took Rhett Lauder, and they said, you are not throwing an official pitch this season. So I would say it's less likely, just knowing what the Reds did last year, it's less likely that they're going to say, hey, go out there and pitch in our pen come October.
Yeah, but Lauder threw more than Burns, right?
He did. Yeah, because they went further for one.
Yeah, they went to the final. They lost LSU, obviously, but
I think the ramping down, ramping up is something that they're one of the teams they basically didn't pitch their pitchers last year. Now that may change though, because Ty Floyd was their second pick as a pitcher, and he's out, and Hunter Holland, who was also a high pick for them from Arkansas, he's just made his pro debut because they didn't pitch any of their college pitchers last year, and 2 of them haven't really pitched this year because of injuries. So that didn't really help keep them safe, at least so far.
It's funny, Chase Burns was on many mock drafts, including Carlos Collazo's at number 3 to the Rockies, but he didn't make it. That's why mock drafts are tough to predict.
He's got to be looking at it and be like,
oh, I get to go play in Coors Field?
Please, let me hit 1,000,000 dingers in Coors Field.
Oh, Charlie. Yeah, it's a good call.
I mean, that's got – I mean, at this point, if you want to talk about the comp that you keep getting, and I don't mean this to scare Rockies fans, but the comp for Charlie Condon is Chris Bryant.
Chris Bryant.
Prime Chris
Don't
Bryant.
say that.
Prime Chris
Don't say that
Bryant.
right
That's
now.
a good
because-
thing.
Yeah, but
the healthy young.
yeah,
That's
but
a
the
good
dude
thing.
in
40
2016, yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
that's the guy you want. He's a little less big and physical at this stage, right?
A little bit, but he's also a way better hitter than Chris Bryant was at the time. Now, Chris Bryant coming out of college had the greatest power year you'll ever see because that was at the time where they were hitting with rolled up newspapers, it felt like. I mean, UCLA won the national title that year and finished, their leader in homers had 4. Chris Bryant out-homered teams that year. But Chris Bryant also struck out and didn't hit for average like Charlie Condon does. So it's a little bit, I would say a little bit less athletic because Bryant was a little bit more of a slam dunk that way, but also a more rounded hitter than Bryant was at this point in Bryant's career.
Another great article. I just want to finish up on Chase Burns, and then we're going to get to the third pick, which should be very soon. Baseball America did an article comparing certain pitches because you can do a lot more nowadays with not just velo, but spin and everything, right? And the fastball comp for Chase Burns was Dylan Cease, right, in that article.
That was the big comp for him with all of his pitches. Now, listen, I saw Dylan Cease throw yesterday in San Diego against the Braves team, and he shoved, punched out 11, was sitting 98 to 100 with this slider.
With this
with
thing
slider.
going down,
They had no chance. In the shadows in San
the
Diego.
shadow was tough.
Yeah, but, I mean, if Chase Burns becomes Dylan Cease, 2022 Dylan Cease especially, that's a great pick.
I will say this. If Chase Burns develops, the thing that's really exciting about this for Cincinnati, and by the way, I'm assuming everyone we're talking about today on round 1 is signing because everyone signs now. We don't have to do the game of if he signs or whatever. But if he develops as they hope, you look at that rotation. You've got Hunter Green. You've got Nick Lodolo. You've got Rhett Lauder. In addition to,
Abbott,
they've got a Frankie
Abbott.
Montas, a guy like that. But you talk about the long term. This is a team in Cincinnati where they know they're never going to spend big to bring in an outside ace. But they're looking at a team where they could have a 1 through 4, 1 through 5, where your number 5 could hopefully be a 3 on some teams. That could give them kind of a long term. They've got Hunter Green locked up. Hunter Green's an all-star. Lodolo, if he can stay healthy, every time he's on the mound, he shows you how good he can be. You add a Lauder and a Burns before too long. That could be a really fun rotation for a long time.
And, it gets me thinking about Cincinnati and what they have relative to the Rockies is the tough ballpark. So with Colorado, I think so many people thought, Chase Burns for them because they have they have trouble getting any pitchers to go there, right? You're not getting free agent pitchers. Cincinnati's had that problem too. We spoke in the offseason. Who did we speak to that mentioned that?
Derek Johnson.
Derek Johnson mentioned that.
Their
pitching coach. We've got the third pick, and it is Charlie Condon. So Charlie Condon's going to get to rake at Coors Field.
Can I get my Rookie of the Year pick in right now? What does BetMGM have for us for the Rookie of the Year pick?
You know how much they needed that? If I'm a Rockies fan, this team, when they sign him, when he shows up, that team will be way more enjoyable at least. I'm not going to tell you that Charlie Condon is going to turn the ship around. That's an aircraft carrier heading in the wrong. It's going to take a long time to turn that around. But if you said, if I'm a Rockies fan, do I have something to get excited about to go out to the park now? Sign me up.
Ezekiel Tovar signs. Obviously, Nolan Jones is having a down year, but he had an unbelievable breakout year last year. Brent Doyle plays Gold Glove defense. They need to figure out who's going to play behind the dish long term. But you're adding Charlie Condon to that lineup. It's exciting, especially on the day when Tolia hit 3 home runs in New York. He's still hitting 190, but he had 3 dingers. This team has to mash. For years, they've tried to figure out their pitching. They have to mash, and they picked up, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest masher in college baseball by far, besides Caglione.
Yeah, as great as Jack is, Condon did hit more home runs in less games.
Right. He won the Golden Spikes Award. He can pick it too, and he can play in multiple spots, outfield. He played a lot of third base this year. We'll talk more about him. We're going to swing aside just for a moment. Only a few breaks per hour here for everyone watching on Valley Sports TV. First time we're doing this. This is great. It's Braun, Pierzynski, Kratz, and JJ Cooper. We'll be right back with more of our draft coverage.
Hurts for
Here we go. We're back. It's Scotty Braun, AJ Pierzynski, Erik Kratz, and JJ Cooper from Baseball America. It's FT's Draft Takeover. We're in Arlington, Texas. We broke down the first few picks, including Charlie Condon at number 3. Let's get caught up because we did learn that Nick Kratz went 4th overall to the Oakland A's. Here's a player who you kind of heard all over the place, right? Early at this point, but could have gone as late as in the 10 to 12 range. What do you think?
I was a little. This draft has already been crazy.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to make it sound like that these are players like what, huh, how, but Nick Kratz. There are scenarios where Nick Kratz is waiting to hear his name called till 9, 10. Instead, J.J. Weatherholt, who we talked about, could do this, but he's waiting to hear his name called. You know, we're seeing Kratz is a really good. Again, the bats are going. The top bats of this class are the strength of the class. The college bats. We were talking before before we went live. Erik's mentioned about this is a lefty first baseman. Big difference. There's been a lot of right first baseman, college first baseman, whose track record have been really sketchy, to be honest, at the top of the draft in recent years. But Erik, it's a little different with the lefty.
And it's so, I know AJ hates the movie. Is there a more Moneyball player right now in the top 10?
Pick. This is money.
100%.
Oakland's like, we can get you at 4 instead of $5 million. We'll give you 3.5. Kratz is like, yeah.
And
Wake Forest has 2 of the top 4 picks.
And he has the highest walk percentage in all of college baseball.
And he had a stretch this year, he would miss some time. But we saw, we've seen the Reese Hines heater. Now, Nick Kratz is a better hitter. Don't think I'm comparing the two that way. But we see what Reese Hines has done this week in the big leagues. Nick Kratz had a stretch in college baseball this year where it's like, if you threw a baseball anywhere within the vicinity of the plate,
gone.
It was over the fence.
Dinger.
And that's what he can do.
And they're going to say, hey, Nick, great to have you. You want to play in the Coliseum on Tuesday?
He didn't get picked by the Angels. He's not getting caught up that fast.
I know, but
Sacramento next year.
He's got a spot pretty quickly that he can fill.
If there ever is a stadium in Vegas, if there ever is, he'll mash there because that's altitude.
Let's get to the next pick. Hagen Smith is going to the Chicago White Sox. Now,
this is Garrett Crochet. This is Garrett Crochet.
Yeah.
Actually, probably with more strikeouts than what Crochet had. But
Jack Aglione was linked to the White Sox here, too. It didn't happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
You need that.
What?
You want that.
No, I didn't want that.
No, the pitcher.
I'm fine with this. I didn't want Jack to go to the White Sox.
Why did you want them to get someone like Hagen Smith?
Well, this is a
Jack
pitcher.
Harris?
They need pitching.
They desperately need
right?
pitching.
They have no pitching. They have Noah Schultz in the minor leagues, and they have some other guys that are, coming. But at the big league level, I mean, Fetty's going to be gone. They're going to get rid of Crochet at some point. But the White Sox, you talked about teams that aren't afraid to bring guys up. I saw it with Chris Sale, 2010. He got drafted, was in the big leagues. Crochet in the big leagues. I mean, they won't do it with Hagen Smith because they're not going to be in it. But this is a White Sox
pick. The other part of that is with Crochet, it did help them because they were in the playoffs at that point. People got to remember the White Sox were. They brought him up because they needed help for the playoffs. But it ended up that Garrett Crochet, because he came up for that, then he had another year as a reliever, then he gets hurt, and you turn around and Garrett Crochet is having this great year, and you're like, wait, he's not a second-year guy. He's like a fourth-year guy where they're much more of a reason to trade him now because they didn't burn service time, but they didn't get the best Garrett Crochet for the longest because they kind of spent a year and a half of using him as a reliever
because they needed him.
When they needed him, but they also anyone needs an ace, and Garrett Crochet is showing that he can start at the front of the rotation. And it took a little longer because of all this.
Yeah, this is a left-handed pitcher who can really sling it. Let's bring our first guest of the day. We're going to have many. Shooter Hunt is joining us right now on the FT Draft Takeover. He is the Vice President of Scouting at Prep Baseball Report. He was on with us the other day on our Draft Roundtable show, Baseball America style, when we were doing that on the YouTube channel. Shooter, great to have you back on. Good to see you. We are 5 picks in. Let's first get your thoughts on how crazy this has been so far.
I mean, nuts. It's so crazy in baseball where you don't know what's coming. We all thought J.J. Weatherholt was going to go 1-1. It's Bazana. What I want to ask you guys, though, at the top, would you rather hit in Colorado or Vegas? Because the thin air for Condon and Kratz, it's got to be a dream to be a hitter going to those places.
Colorado.
Yeah, but we don't know about Vegas yet.
We don't know Vegas
But first
yet.
of all,
but
let's also say this. They haven't broken ground yet in Vegas. So it's
it
not
might
like
be Sacramento.
it's not like
which is a good
Vegas
place
is a
to hit.
sure thing, okay? Until they actually put the stadium up and there is a stadium with people in it and there is a game starting, I ain't counting on it in Vegas.
Sacramento would also be a good place to hit, but Colorado's field is so big, and for a guy like Condon who can actually hit and hit for power, I don't care about the home runs I give up in Colorado. It's how much my outfielders have to run because there's so much space. Balls fall in, jam jobs off the end, in the gap.
I mean, Burns has got to be ecstatic too. To go to Cincinnati, you're eyeing obviously Colorado at 3, which is kind of where I thought he would go if he got there to take that chance. But to not have to go to Colorado is big for an arm. Condon's going to hit bombs there. It's been college heavy as we kind of anticipated early. Got some late breaking news with William Schmidt taking his name out of the draft from the high school side, which was some surprising stuff. But I'd expect to see even more college guys go. I know you guys were just talking about the Sox taking Hagen Smith, which would be a very nice pick. Did that get announced yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Like spot on with Crochet, because I know right now they're trying to shop Crochet. There's a chance he could be traded. It kind of seems like you bring one in, let the other one go. Keep building up the system with where they're at right now.
as you said, Shooter, we all kind of thought Weatherholt had a chance to go 1. I can't imagine he's going to wait too much longer to hear his name called here. But is this shaping up to kind of be now the steal of the draft potentially?
Potentially. I mean, he was a 1-1 candidate. I know Jack Haglione's sitting out there right now. There were just so many guys that were in that grouping. And you guys know how it goes. Once you get the 7-8, you grab that guy. He doesn't have the same pressure as 1-1. He's going to be really good too. And then in the end, it could easily be the steal of the draft. But Weatherholt, with the way he really performed defensively late in the year, that value really amplified that bat.
Hey, what else has stood out to you so far in the first 5 picks? And has this gone as you thought it would?
I think almost everybody's thinking Condon was going to the Reds. Just that athletic bat, and then to hear Chase Burns' name, and I tweeted out a little while ago, just as a former pitcher myself, the idea of the starting pitching continuing to make a comeback. With Hunter Green, they took Rhett Lauder last year, who has a chance to be a real good starter within the future games. And then Chase Burns, just all these premium frontline guys, Paul Skeens. I'm definitely biased towards pitchers, but having those starters that you can build just some buzz around for games going back in the 90s, early 2000s, the guys you guys were playing against, just those starter matchups. The Reds are building something fun here. And I know this year hasn't been what it was last year, but they got some good young arms that I'm excited about. So I think that's my favorite pick so far is that Chase Burns at 2.
The other thing that jumps out about when you look at Smith, the White Sox have had different people involved in this, obviously, but they're going back to the same well. This fireballing lefty, they've done it with Sale, they've done it with Crochet. But what do you think Smith can give to a team that really obviously needs a lot?
Well, I think having that frontline type guy who can miss bats, and especially for them, they got some good young players. Colson Montgomery playing. You guys just talked about Noah Schultz. Imagine having 2 frontline lefties and Smith and Schultz coming up in the bump. Now, it's going to take a little bit longer for Schultz, who's younger. But, I mean, Hagen Smith, there's some right now stuff. And if he got pushed quickly, which he had Tommy John in high school, I believe it was after his sophomore year. So he has had that surgery in his belt. There's not much time to wait. It's not like you're sending him down to season for 2-3 seasons. At this point, this is the second college arm off the board. Get him up to the bigs when he's ready. He saw what Skeens was able to do. The SEC is a different animal, honestly. Get him ready to go. And I like the pick there. They also have the Sox are going to do a really good job with the rest of their picks because they'll be able to split some stuff up. There's some good depth and talent from the high school side later, kind of into the supplemental second round. So they'll be able to get some talent there, and Hagen Smith's a great pick.
And Shooter, while we're talking to you, of course, it's pretty rapid fire in this draft. So we've got the next pick. That's Jack Haglione, 6th overall to the Kansas City Royals. And we discussed him a lot on the Roundtable show the other day. So can you explain, how you guys have been, I would say on the higher side, right, on Jack compared to some other lists? Obviously, he's a star player in college, but give us the breakdown.
Yeah, and it's funny, we talked about he was number 1 on our list, and I felt like he kind of got some hated on a little bit throughout the industry. There's some swing and miss, some chase, whatnot. The dude hit a ball like over 500 feet this year. It just doesn't happen to a college kid. He can throw 100 miles an hour from the left side. I'm not saying he's Shohei Ohtani. Nobody is. That's a once in a generational talent. But to be a middle of the order bat with that type of power, I think honestly that the Royals getting him at 6, I think people are going to probably be like, oh, we like him even more now. We like him at 6, better than we did at 1 or 2, but it's still a mega talent. Dude is not scared. I love the way he steps in the box. He expects success. He's looking to do damage at all times. And you guys have seen guys who kind of step in, they dip their toe in, they feel out the at-bat. This guy is looking to do damage to all fields at all times. He should do really well early on, wherever they send him. Shoot right up, have a chance to really rise up quickly. The Royals are looking to win right now. They got Bobby Witt Jr. locked up and as a foundational player. And if you get this, if you hit on Jack Caglione, oh man, that's some serious protection for him.
Shooter, let me ask you this. So why is Caglione falling? I don't understand. I asked JJ this earlier. They said he strikes out too much. He cut his strikeouts set way down. He doesn't walk. His walk rate went through the roof, right? He still hit 35 homers. He still hit 400. He still did damage. He was still getting intentionally walked with nobody on base in the regionals against the best teams and in the World Series in the Final Four against the best teams in baseball. Well, I don't understand how a guy, everyone, he's not going to pitch, all right? Let's just establish that. He's not going to pitch in the pros. He's going to hit, okay? But how does he fall? I don't understand how everything scouts asked him to do, he did, and he went into the season like as the consensus #1 pick, and now he went to 6. I just don't understand what else this guy could do. Yes, I know Charlie Condon went up in Bazana and all that, but like it doesn't seem like Jack Caglione could have done anything different than go out and just mash.
You're right with us. We need to bring you over to Prep Baseball. You're feeding exactly what we're trying to sell. But you know who's saying that right now are the Royals. And Brian Bridges over there is probably saying, these guys are all dumb. We got Cags. That's money.
I love Bridgie. He's great. I love Bridgie. So
I'm with you. His out of the zone, his chase. But like you said, he got better at everything. Who's to say that next year he won't be even better? So I'm with you there.
Well, Shooter, we appreciate the time. I know you'll be busy here. Thank you for jumping in to join us and enjoy the rest of the hectic draft here.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. You guys have a good time.
Thank you. Appreciate you. And everyone, please follow Shooter at Shooter Hunt. Very easy to spell, of course, and check out his work over at Prep Baseball. We'll swing right back to talk about Cleveland's pick with Jensen Lewis next. What's up, everyone? We're back. It's FT in Arlington, Texas. Draft coverage continues, and right now we're bringing in our friend Jensen Lewis, who covers the Cleveland Guardians on Cleveland Guardians Live, covers the game national on MLB Network Radio, went to Vandy. He's been talking up this first overall pick for Cleveland. Jensen, great to have you, and what's your reaction to Cleveland going the way they go with Travis Bazzana? I don't think you expected it, did you?
Scotty, great to be with you and the boys. And you got a lot of people lighting up some cigars here at this Guardians watch party. I think they're pretty excited about seeing, Travis Bazzana. And I think right down to the wire, fellas, between him, between obviously J.J. Weatherholt rocketing up those draft boards. But I think there's just something about the completeness of the player. I think the quick, immediate impact timeline that he could have getting into a Cleveland big league uniform. So a lot of people excited about it. I know they were on pins and needles headed down, but I think a lot of people really happy with this pick.
Why was it him? Jensen, why was it him? Why was it not a Charlie Condon? Why was it not Weatherholt? Why was it not Caglione? Or even a Chase Burns? Cleveland knows how to develop starting pitching. Why would they not go out and get a Chase Burns or a Hagen Smith? By the way, Hagen Smith's going to shove against the Guardians for future, so maybe you should have taken him.
Yeah, AJ, again, you know this well as anybody when it comes down to how the draft dollars are really allocated. I think they wanted to maximize, and even kind of Chris Antonetti alluding to that they've got opportunities not only just with this first pick, but also what they have coming up in that compensatory spot and also the second round. I think they look at this as a couple of things, that you don't have to necessarily take a Burns at one with how well they've been able to draft and develop pitching at every spot in their Major League Draft history these last 5 to 10 years. I think they're looking for that immediate offensive impact. And I'll agree with you, AJ. And people ask me, I was looking for a Condon. I was looking for a Caglione, that aircraft carrier type in the middle of the lineup that could be there almost immediately, or at least in the next couple of years. But this is the way they went. And, him and Stephen Kwan atop this lineup, I know a lot of Oregon State fans are going to be happy to see that reunion here in the very near future.
So how do you see this sorting out over the next few years? Because when I look at the Guardians and I look at the talent, they've got a franchise player at third base. They've got a long-term answer at second base. They also have a ton of shortstops who obviously they're kind of sorting through, although probably more answers there than they have at-bats to share. How do you see Bazzana kind of fitting into this? Are we talking maybe he moves the outfield, or do you think this may get worked out a different way? But how do you see him fitting into this Guardians lineup in a couple of years?
Yeah, I think the immediate answer is one that has probably been circled around a little bit with the plethora of middle infield prospects. And, now with seeing Brian Rocchio, Gab Arias come up and try and play and be the everyday guy and take the role, it hasn't really transpired, albeit, we're just a year, maybe two into having those guys with opportunities for that everyday role. It's not out of the realm of possibility that you see an Andre Jimenez go from a platinum winner at second to going to shortstop and making a positional change. If Bazzana is as polished and as close to big league ready as I think this front office believes he is, then it wouldn't shock me if maybe at this deadline immediately you package some of those upper level middle infield resources to go out and get a potential impact player, whether it is a bat, whether it is a starting rotation arm, because I think Cleveland even surprised themselves being where they are record-wise here in 2024, and they know the American League is wide open. So this might create a domino effect with Bazzana at one, knowing where his primary position is up the middle. They may start to package some guys here as early as this trade deadline.
Jensen, how much of a pick? Listen, Bazzana's a great pick, and he went number one overall. But the Guardians aren't exactly known for spending money and going above maybe slot and going out on the free agent market. So how much of this was, hey, we can get a deal done with him. We call him and, hey, yeah, the slot is 10.5, but we can get him for 8.5 and maybe down the road save that $2 million to try to go get other players.
AJ, you're right on it, man. And I think that's probably a big reason why you saw the names of Bazzana and Weatherholt really start to be in serious consideration at one over a Charlie Condon, where, hey, there's no getting around the 433 average. There's no getting around 37 home runs. And really it's the last couple of years of Condon being able to swing with that kind of power. So the money is definitely playing into it. And as I said, when you look at where their upper echelon picks are now in the compensatory round also in that second round. I think they wanted to maximize this pool, and Bazana gave them the maximum flexibility while also maybe the shortest timeline to get to the big leagues to impact this big league team.
Hey, Jensen, awesome to have you on. Enjoy the rest of the party out there. Congrats to Cleveland. We're excited to see Travis Bazana and what he can do in the minors and eventually in the majors. And we'll talk to you soon, all right, bud?
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. That's Jensen Lewis. You can follow him at JLou50. JLou50 covers the Cleveland Guardians, who went with Travis Bazana #1 overall. We've had 2 picks since we started that up, so we'll step aside for a quick 2 minutes, and then we'll talk about J.J. Weatherholt and Christian Moore going 7 and 8. Hey, what's up, everyone? We're back with the Foul Territory Draft Takeover in Arlington, Texas. We're still running through the top 10 picks here as they're coming through. We're up to number 8. We'll get you caught up in just a second. It's Scotty Braun, AJ Pierzynski, Erik Kratz, Baseball America's JJ Cooper. Also, if you have questions for us, you can ask them in our YouTube chat. Just go to @Foul Territory Show on YouTube, or just type in Foul Territory, and you can join the chat. You can ask us questions. We'll get to a little Q&A later on. Subscribe to that channel. If you're watching on Valley Sports right now and you want to follow us on socials, it's @Foul Territory Show just about everywhere besides Twitter. We're @Foul Territory TV. Okay, let's get caught up. So 7, J.J. Weatherholt to the St. Louis Cardinals, a player that we talked about, JJ, as a potential #1 overall pick, but the fact that he could drop out of the top 5. Number 8, Christian Moore to the Angels. Your thoughts?
Let's start with Weatherholt. With Weatherholt, we said this was the risk. This is why, if you're J.J. Weatherholt, you're probably open for a deal at 1 if they offer it, because you're going to make more money there than you would if you fall. At the same time, if I'm the Cardinals, I'm thrilled because I'm getting a guy who is a top-of-the-board talent at 7 for a team that I don't think I'll say this. Mason wins there. All this talking with Weatherholt as a shortstop, which I think he is, but you have to be better than the shortstop who's there, and I don't know if that's going to be the case with Wynn. We'll see. His arm's great, but his defense still, Mason Wynn's defense needs to improve a little bit too. But we'll see that. But this is a pure bat. D1 batting champ last year. Condon won it this year, but Weatherholt, when he was fully healthy last year, was also a batting champ. This guy can really hit. There is some pop. There's athleticism. Highest drafted Mountaineer in MLB draft history also.
Who was the last one? Do you guys remember?
Manoah?
Alec Manoah.
Wow.
By the way, this seems like the most Cardinals pick of all time. Like, this is like seems like the safest, most Cardinals pick, right? Like, oh, he's kind of fast. He kind of can play defense. He can hit a little bit.
Cardinal way player.
Yeah, like it's
High floor.
This is like the most. Yeah, they're not like, oh, we're going to shoot for the total upside or bust. We're going to take the safest player in the draft.
Yeah,
that's there. That's available.
But I want to counter that for a quick second to get your thoughts, JJ. He's listed 5'10", 190. We know listed usually means you're like 5'8", 175.
Griffin did
Next
9.
pick.
Griffin's 9. That's my prediction of the Pirates.
Okay.
Yeah, high school
and
pick,
he's had soft
absolutely.
tissue injuries. So do you think
Hamstring.
do you think the size coupled with a soft hamstring injury, the soft tissue injury, could have been a factor that held him back as well?
Potentially a little bit, because also he doesn't have the thump. Like, this is a perfect segue here to the guy who went right after him. If you want a middle infielder who can mash, Christian Moore is your guy over J.J. Weatherholt. Now, J.J. Weatherholt's a much better
he's not
defender.
defensively as good, I don't think.
Oh, yeah,
as
much better defender.
Weatherholt.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. That's why Weatherholt to me is more
Yes.
like Christian Moore might have more upside with the bat and probably running and doing some other things. But there's also a chance, well, he might not be able to play. But they're like with Weather. That's what I'm saying. The Cardinals with Weatherholt, that's like the perfect Cardinals pick, right?
Whereas
it's like very safe, very cookie
Whereas
cutter.
the,
Here we
the
go.
perfect Angels pick is Christian Moore, does he reach the majors next week? Does it take 3 weeks of negotiations to sign him?
Yeah.
A week in Rocket City, a AA, and then boom, let's move him up. Because that's about how long Shaniel was in them, their first starter last year. Nolan Shaniel was their starter really quickly. Here we could go again. Or maybe they actually slow it down here. But Moore is a guy who we talked about at the top of the draft. We talked about with Cags, with Condon, guys who got better. Christian Moore got better as far as strikeouts. He was right there with Cags and Condon as far as homers. In the SEC, we saw it in the College World Series over and over where he was posting exit velos that O'Neal Cruz looks at and tips his cap and says, wow.
Yeah, he was playing at a high level, right? For 3 years, performing at a high level, playing at the biggest stage, obviously performed in the postseason, the whole deal. And you're right. I mean, he might get a phone call from Zach Neto tonight and be like, yo, you want to start working on a little double play combination action, right? With the Angels. It's not a crazy thought. I mean, he can slot in there this year. This is what the Angels do. Seriously. So anyway,
he might. Well, who plays second base for the Angels now?
Right now it's Drury. Guillorme gets some
Guillorme's
time.
playing a lot of third,
Rengifo
though.
plays all over the
Rengifo, when
place.
he's healthy.
He's hurt. He's going to get traded.
Yep,
he
he'll be
should
gone
get
if
traded.
he's healthy.
If they're smart, he'll get traded. Christian Moore will be up in 2 weeks.
If Christian Moore can stand up all day and not sit down like Noah Shanwell, he will be in the big leagues in a week.
Standing contest, you and me.
Yes, they can stand on the right side of the diamond and see who can stand up longer.
Connor Griffin is 9th overall to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Your thoughts?
First high school pick off the board. Finally. This is, which I do, that's kind of crazy if you think about the history of the draft. There was a time where it was high school. Here we are. We've gone through 8 picks before we pick 9 before we hear a high school got taken. And the guy we have taken, Connor Griffin, cool to see they announced him outfield shortstop. 85 steals this year in high school.
5.
I mean,
but you
Stop
only
it,
play.
AJ.
no,
85.
I'm saying he played, 30 games? So if he got on first, he stole second and stole third. I don't know the competition he played against.
I don't care. He had to steal 2 bags a game.
Okay. In high school, you can do that.
If I was coach,
If
I'm
you
intentionally walking him.
And then,
That's a
Before
and then you
he's
go
a day.
third.
That's a triple.
Intentional triple. This is so.
Was he on our team? Was he
Yeah,
on
he
my
was.
team or your team?
He was on my team.
We were on the same team, weren't we?
Yes,
At
we were.
Seattle
But-
last year, the USA
But
game?
I was actually coaching. You were just on the bench.
True. I was
This
just,
kid.
I was
You
just
know
talking.
what's
Oh,
funny
you
about
guys
this?
talked to him.
This is so Pirates pick because of the extreme value. He's the youngest high school kid in the draft because he's technically a junior this year.
Reclass.
He reclassed up. He was supposed to graduate next year, and he's now graduating high school a year early, so he gets into the system. He'll actually be younger than the guys who will get picked next year out of high school.
And he was a two-way guy. And everyone this athletic is a two-way guy in high school, but this guy was a legit two-way guy. Like where you could
97
have
off the
seen,
mound.
you could have seen someone say we're taking him as a pitcher, but the Pirates he immediately becomes one of the most athletic players in the Pirate system, one of the most well-rounded. Now, the thing about it you said, he'll also be one of the youngest.
Oh, let me stop you there because he reclassed up. He's already 18. It's not like he's 17. He should be a
he
year
just
down.
turned 18?
He's 18 in 3 months.
I thought he was
according
going
to Perfect Game.
in 3 months.
No, he's 18 and 3 months. So he's already 18.
Okay. So he was
it's
already
not like
older.
he's – now listen, when I graduated high school, I was 17.
Right, that's why I thought
So
he
I had
was the
just
same.
graduated 17. So you see guys now that are reclassing up because they were held back in 8th grade, and now they're like, oh, I can bounce up and be in my original draft
And
class.
take away that concern.
Because what's happened is so many people have been held back, which I am totally not for. Like I am
Agreed.
against like reclassing in 8th grade, so I look better. But to pro scouts, if you're younger playing up against better competition, you actually are more valuable because you're younger than you are if you jump in at 19. Like there's kids that my son plays against your son that my son, they're going to be seniors in high school. They're going to be like almost 20 years old as high school seniors. They're like, oh, it's going to help my draft stock. That's not the answer.
That ain't it. And I want to say, because I coached him, sorry, JJ,
Right.
that watching this kid, and we're only comparing him to the other All-Americans from last year.
Yep.
Watching him and interacting with him, I felt like there was a maturity there that I was like, it was intriguing to me. Now, obviously, if you go to the whole Mississippi high school hitter, people are going to be nervous about it.
Yes.
But the nerves usually are surrounded by other things. It's just a history of like Mississippi high school hitters, which I hate hearing that. This kid seems very mature.
I think it's a little different now, though, because when it used to be, when you said Mississippi high school hitters, it was they stayed in Mississippi, right? If you only played Mississippi competition, there was a fair stereotype. Like these guys often struggle. But now they're not playing just in Mississippi. Like you're talking about, Connor Griffin's played everyone. He's faced all competition
Other
all around
countries.
the country. Yeah, all other countries. It's not something where he's going, this is going to be the first time that he sees someone outside of the state. One other thing I did want to shout out, we were talking about this, the first high school player taken 9th overall, Corey Patton with Pramana Labs, which is working with us tonight, kind of providing all these tidbits with the shift tool. That set the record. This is the longest of 8 college players taken top of the draft. First time we've ever had 8 college players in a row to start the draft.
Ever.
Wow.
Previous record was 7.
Hold on. And by the way, you're saying it wrong. It's Mississippi, okay? Because you guys.
Yeah, sorry.
What did we say? Mississippi?
Mississippi. It's Mississippi.
What about the
The SIP.
SIP?
Okay, well,
The
we're not
SIP,
the SIP, but if I'm not from the SIP. But like Blaze Jordan, I thought should have been a first-round pick because of his hit tool is off the chart. To me, is off the charts. When he got
I
drafted,
thought his power was off the charts. I wasn't so sure that his hit tool's off the charts.
Okay.
But, you know.
yeah, I just felt like that negative stereotype. I love seeing the fact that he goes where he goes here, where Connor Griffin goes in the draft, because that negative stereotype pre-draft is unfair just because it happened to other kids.
Well, and again, the thing that has changed to me about the high school side, there are things with showcases and all that haven't been ideal, but one thing that's been a very positive development from it is you now have a much safer feel about these high school bats, especially. They don't hit pro ball and go, oh, how do they handle velocity? I remember when Byron Buxton was drafted, I talked to Twins officials who were like, I said, what was the best pitcher you saw him face in his high school season? Because he was playing in Appleton County, small town Georgia, and the best one was a guy who maybe would be a JUCO arm, 86, 87. If that was all, you wouldn't have been comfortable taking Buxton at the top of the draft. But nowadays, you've seen Byron Buxton facing all the best arms in that class during the summer before it, then you feel comfortable taking them. Mississippi guys the same way. You make those decisions, a lot of them, based on what they did before.
I've got the next one for you. It's Seaver King going to the Washington Nationals at number 10 overall. Seaver King is taken next by the Washington Nationals.
That's a surprise, right?
Out of Wake Forest, can play a number of different positions.
On the border of this.
Yep.
Like, this is a little high.
Wake Forest has 3 top 10 picks.
That's crazy.
And they didn't get out of the regional this year. What happened there?
We had them on our, we had our cover planned. I'll just be honest. We had our draft preview cover planned in January. It's like, if Wake goes deep, we've got all these draft studs on this team. They'll be like our draft preview cover. And then we ended up kind of going in a different direction because Wake didn't go that deep. But at the same time, they did it last year with less talent. Is the crazy part.
Yeah, they didn't have Chase Burns last year.
Yeah, but they did.
They had Louder, Kurtz.
But
King was there, right?
King's a transfer.
King transferred in, right?
King's an example of the modern era also, because Seaver King's a guy who's like, you know what? I have the talent. If I can transfer to a big D1, because he wasn't.
Wasn't he a D2 guy?
Yeah. If I can transfer a big D1, I think I can be a premium draft pick. Let's just be honest. Seaver King's not going 10 overall if he doesn't make that move, if he doesn't transfer. Had a great summer last year, if I remember correctly, but also the key thing is what he showed this spring answers a lot of questions, and that is the advantage. There are a lot of people in college baseball who are a little worried about where this is going, understandably, but for guys like Seaver King, this makes a big difference to have that ability to take that talent, transfer to a school where every scouts to you every game and go, yep, top 10 pick.
And he's going to be able to negotiate his second signing bonus now.
That's right. He's already got experience. Negotiate your bonus with your school and now with your team. And he's listed as a shortstop for now by the Nationals, but can play third, can play the outfield as well.
But he was at D2 Wingate, by the way. Which
Wingate.
I will say, Wingate also should be proud today, though. I'm going to say that comfortably. That's probably one of the very few Wingate alums to hear their name called in the first day of the draft.
Oh, because you're a Wingate. You're a Wingate.
Are you a Wingate guy?
Aficionado?
No, I am not a Wingate guy.
He knows everything.
You remember this, AJ? Go Dogs.
What?
Go Dogs.
You're a Georgia guy?
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that. No wonder when I'm talking about Jack, you're talking about Charlie Conklin.
That's why I'm sitting between you two.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
SEC, it just smells different.
It just means more. I don't know.
Hey, this is a good time, though, for us to also mention the draft pick that was traded, because it's the Washington Nationals trading away Hunter Harvey to the Kansas City Royals. Credit to Kratz the other day, who said the next trade would be the Royals, because they were aggressive early on last year on the reverse, where they traded away Aroldis Chapman. They desperately needed relief pitching help. They got Hunter Harvey. They desperately need swing and miss. Harvey can provide that. He hasn't been as good this year as last year, but still big swing and miss pitcher. But the key to know for tonight is they get a prospect in Caden Wallace, but also the Washington Nationals acquire competitive balance pick number 39. And what that does is not just give them another pick, but it also means that they get an extra $2.4-ish million that they're able to spend in this draft, which actually pushed them up past the Royals. So they have the 7th largest bonus pool, almost $14 million. The Royals now are at 8th in the $13 million range. It matters because it's going to help them play out the rest of the draft.
If only you were listening to the Fox broadcast of the Braves-Padres yesterday when this hit, and with Ken Rosendahl, who mentioned this, I might have had a conversation. I'm like, yeah, Ken, you said this on a show the other day that this was going to happen.
What did he say?
He kind of laughed.
He laughed? Yeah. Ken's
He
been
was
on
right.
it.
He was right.
He
Now
was right.
We have Bryce
He did
Veneer.
say there's he basically said, because he doesn't want to do any guarantees, there's going to be a draft pick traded. And he was right. Now, that had to happen, JJ, before the draft. Otherwise, or a certain amount of time before the draft, right?
You can't
24
say
hours,
like
whatever it is.
at 36, let's trade the pick.
Yep.
But they got it under the wire there. And that does tell me, I like what you said, I think the Nationals are going to be aggressive here. I think the Nationals, it means that their later picks today, and especially their day 2 picks, day 3 pick, they'll probably have a day 3 pick, that 11th, 12th rounder, who are going to look back and go, wow, they got a really good, a really good talent that they're going to pay way above slot for that spot because of what they did here.
And I've got the next pick for you. Number 11 overall to the Detroit Tigers goes Bryce Rayner, one of the top high school pitchers, of course, went to Harvard Westlake out in California.
Shocker.
And they are they announcing him as a shortstop. Yeah.
Shortstop to play with Kevin McGonigal.
Yeah, my bad. Obviously, position player.
This is the new Tigers.
That's
the new
what
Tigers are like 5 years ago. The Tigers, if you said who are they going to take, I would say SEC power arm, maybe even be a reliever, and then they were going to take really athletic, good defenders, hope to take them hit. Current Tigers regime is the flip side of that in some ways. I know I've used this before, but McGonigal, Max Clark can really hit. He can to field too, but he can really. Riley Green can really hit. Hoping still Spencer Torkelson, but that was the plan, was Spencer Torkelson can really hit. But Rainier, you've adding another premium talent here. We aren't seeing many high school guys off the board, but the 2 we thought would go at the top are the 2 who's gone off the top here. And I do look at this Tiger system. I think it's still got a ways to go, but you've seen a little bit of Colt Keefe doing what he's been doing lately.
Yeah.
To go with Riley Green, to go with the pitching staff has gotten better. So you got front of the rotation guy in Skubal. There are signs here. Still a lot of ways to go, but especially like you mentioned McGonigal. McGonigal has shown this year that dude could be a potential stud. And you just keep adding guys like that. Still a little ways away, but nowadays a little ways away is not as long a ways away as it used to be, especially for position players.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about Rayner on our show the other day, on our draft roundtable show. And there were two very different comps thrown out there. I don't know if you caught this, JJ, but our two guests. So Shooter Hunt said Corey Seager comp. Similar frame, wiry, athletic, can stick at shortstop. Keith Law was on with us and countered that, and we're going to talk to Keith later. And he said he doesn't see the same bat upside of a Corey Seager, but he had his own comp for him. He said Bryce Terang, which obviously a very different player than Corey Seager, but he thought he saw a Terang in someone like Rayner. I don't know about your thoughts there.
I kind of want to split the difference there. Like I don't
certain qualities of both.
Seager's the archetype to me of the extremely big, strong guy who can play short. Terang's kind of I don't know if he's an archetype of anything, but Terang's more of a fluid, well-rounded, but smaller guy. I mean, he did get bigger in pro ball, but I think Rainier's somewhere in the middle of that kind of like. I wish I were coming up with the guy exactly who fits the in between of that, but I kind of think of Rainier. There is some athleticism here. I don't think this is like, he's going to absolutely have to move off position or anything. I think he's very well-rounded, but I think it's more of kind of like a hit-first guy who also can stay at the position, but I don't think he's going to be like a 7 defender or anything either. I don't think that's the expectation with him. Although we do see, the other thing that I would say that we see more now, as hard as it is to hit, we do see guys, defense partly, you guys know this better than anything, way better than I do. Defense is something, there's some want to it too, which is that if you have a guy who's willing to work really hard, there's a lot of aspects of defense that you can improve as a pro.
Sure. I'm going to get us to the next pick. Braden Montgomery goes 12th overall to the Boston Red Sox. Switch hitter, outfielder, Texas A&M, big pop, also used to be a pitcher. Broke his ankle in the playoffs,
does that
right?
worry anybody? Because he was just running and snipered and broke his leg, right? I mean,
ankle.
It was a freak. I mean, it was.
Is your ankle not in your leg, Scott?
I don't know. When you say broken leg, I feel like
Mickey
that's
Mantle.
different. No.
Yeah, but he did it on a sprinkler head. This guy just did it.
We don't know. I don't know if it was
running
a
down the
sprinkler
line.
out there.
Is your ankle in your leg? I just want to know.
I don't know.
It's not
I'm not
your arm.
100%.
I don't have an ankle on my arm.
Yeah, but it could be a foot injury.
That's still in your leg.
So if you break your hand, it's your arm,
Yeah, this is not part of your arm.
upper body, lower body,
Upper body
whatever.
injury.
Yeah, sure.
He broke his leg.
He did.
He
Just
did.
not doing
Running,
anything
just trying to
crazy.
score. Does that have any? Because some guys I play with Brian Buchanan. You probably don't even know who that is.
Oh, no, I'm 100%
He was a first
remember.
round pick out of Virginia,
100%.
6'6", 240 pounds, could run, hit for power. Yankees first rounder, gets traded to the Twins. Well, in the minor leagues, he broke his ankle, his leg and ankle at first base, and was never the same guy. So
Jorge Alfaro.
do people worry about that?
I think you have
Kendrys
to.
Morales.
Yeah, you have to worry about it. And we are not – you obviously, I would imagine that with Montgomery when he was, the medicals on this, you're going over it, you're looking at how it's healing and all that. But you can't know for sure. He's still in a booth. It's not something where you're like, he's running again, this is what he looks like. But you are taking also – you're also taking a little bit of a chance here, but you're also getting a talent that if it hadn't been for that, might not still be on the board. So if he makes the full recovery, you might be getting a little bit of a bargain here, because if he was healthy, he was in that consideration to maybe be a top 6, 7, 8 guy. And here he is now. You're sitting here going, you know what? Is he the best guy on the board? Maybe he is. And you look at him as another guy who there's a track record here, but what he did this year at Texas A&M before the injury was really encouraging as far as him. He's done a little bit of both. He's been a pitcher and a hitter before, kind of focusing on hitting. Really, we saw the bat take a step forward.
Let me ask you this, though. Another guy transferred, right? Started at Stanford and ended up at A&M. that helps your draft stock, right? If you end up, I mean, nothing against Stanford.
Yeah.
Stanford's a great program, long tradition, but he goes to the SEC. Look at the
And
SEC. The SEC had the Final Four teams. You look at them.
They went to Omaha.
Top 25 teams. There's 12 of them, like SEC.
That's the reality of it now. And he also, I mean, the reality of it now is that you are seeing more pitching. If you're a hitter, there's more pitching in the SEC than there is out west.
Where's he from? Mississippi.
Yeah.
The SIP.
The SIP.
Much more on the
Papelbon's
SIP
so
coming
proud.
up next on the MLB Draft Takeover. Now we're going to talk to Scott Merkin, AJ's buddy,
Oh, man.
about the White Sox, what they did, and maybe what's still to come for them in this first day of the draft. We will be right back on Valley Sports. We're also hanging out with the chat tube. There we go. We're back on with MLB.com. Scott Merkin, who covers the Chicago White Sox. Want to say hi to your boy?
No, I don't.
Well, you have to.
Merkin, we're not going to talk about Michigan football. Nobody cares.
I got the shirt on. I got the championship shirt ready to go. Let's go.
They didn't win any baseball championships.
No,
so let's get
are
to
they?
let's talk ball.
They got one.
Let's talk. So let's get your first reaction here from the White Sox community and your expectations of Hagen Smith. And did you expect this to happen?
I think it's a little surprising. You know, the one thing they do have at the major league level and in their system is a lot of pitching. And, you know, it does present these guys at the top two, Burns and Smith, from what I've been told, are considered pretty close to major league ready. So this is a guy who could, you know, slide into the rotation at some point next year. If you keep Crochet, you have him, Crochet, Noah Schultz, Drew Thorpe, and Jonathan Cannon. That makes for a pretty darn good rotation. If you lose Crochet, you have a guy to step up and take the spot. Lose as in not misplace him, but trade him, obviously. So it's an interesting pick. I thought they would go bat there. I thought, you know, Jack would be the guy they took, but they went with Hagen Smith. And we were told by the amateur scouting director earlier in the week that they were on pitching still. They had about 10 guys they were looking at number 5, and 2 of them were the pitchers.
Scott, but with him, bringing him in, like you said, he's a fast mover. Is this a White Sox team now that's kind of decided that they want to build around pitching? You look at that Birmingham staff, which is kind of where they've put they've promoted some of them now, but they kind of put almost all of their best arms who aren't that far away. You look at the big league club, I kind of feel like you mentioned Crochet, but we don't know how many guys are going to get moved here. Is this a team that's kind of its new identity is to maybe try to move forward with being a very pitching heavy organization?
Well, I think AJ can speak to this, having played there for so long, that they always liked pitching. They always like to have pitching under control so they didn't have to overspend on pitching. And they're doing that right now. And I think you can also, I don't want to say stockpile, but add to this young group and maybe use some of them to trade for other players that will help you next year. But yeah, I think they love the young. I know they love the young pitching they have. Not only did they have a lot of the big arms at Birmingham, Mason Adams, Noah Schultz, Kai Bush, Drew Thorpe, but they had their catcher of the future, Edgar Caro, down there for a long time too before he got promoted to Charlotte. So yeah, I think pitching is their focus, but I think overall, Chris Guest wants to build one of the top farm systems in baseball. That's his goal right now. He's got a ways to go to get to that point, but that's one of his targets.
Are they promoting that? Because there's no other team in baseball right now that's like, I should be promoting the youth, the draft, the young guys, Birmingham, even lower than that. Are they promoting it enough? Because I think throughout baseball, we don't promote it, and this could be a team that should promote it.
They are. I mean, they're not going out of their way to, focus on them on top of the big league team that's playing every day. But they are giving play to these guys. There's been Zoom calls with them. Mason Adams, Jairo Ariarte, Juan Corella, and Jake Eater were all here in Chicago this past week throwing for Brian Bannister and Ethan Katz and the White Sox overall, kind of getting a look at them. So, yeah, I think it's kind of understood, though, just partially because the Major League team is 44 games under 500, right? So I think they're promoting kind of the next wave that's coming up, the next group of young players.
Where first of all, Merkin, I saw Lance Broadway today, former White Sox first-round pick. So, they have a nice history there. Where would Hagen Smith
too, right?
What's that?
He was an actor, too, at one point, I want to say, too.
Yeah, he's a good-looking fellow, Merk. You don't be jealous. Where does Hagen Smith fit in this group, though? Because you mentioned a lot of the names that they've made trades for. Where does he fit? Does he move right to the top of the list? I'm sure Schultz would probably still be the number one guy. So does Hagen Smith slot in right behind him? Thorpe's already obviously up. Cannon's obviously up. But they have, with all the trades, they've gotten a bunch of arms. So is Hagen Smith now probably their second best prospect pitching-wise?
Yeah, I'd have to probably know a little bit more about him and talk to Shirley a little bit more about him. But I think from people I talked to beforehand, they told me that these two guys, Smith and Burns, were kind of right there. So I think he would be. It's hard to top Thorpe and Cannon, who are going to have basically a full, maybe not a full, 2/3 of the season at the Major League level, and they've both been pretty effective. Nick Nastrini had about 5 to 8 starts, and then, like you said, Noah Schultz is still their number one guy. He's so young, though, that he probably, be more later, 25. But, yeah, I think Hagen Smith is right at the top of the list, right near the top with Colson Montgomery, Noah Schultz, Drew Thorpe.
You don't know anything about Hagen Smith. You know why, Merkin? Because he's in the SEC. It just means more. Get out of the little 11 where you live and get down to where baseball matters, okay?
And Michigan went to a championship game championship series one year. I remember it vaguely against Vanderbilt. And they lost.
How'd that go?
Yeah. They lost.
They lost. We'll talk to Backage later tonight.
Yeah, we'll have Backage on later.
Very nice.
We talked about the pitching. What is this White Sox lineup going to look like in 2025, 26?
It's a good question. There are so many moves that are probably coming between now and July 30th. It depends on who they get back in these trades. Like, they did a good job. Rick Hahn, Kenny Williams did a good job last year of adding some good young talent to the system that didn't have a ton of it. Colson Montgomery is a guy projected at shortstop. Brian Ramos could be the third baseman. You have Edgar Caro at catcher. Very thin on outfielders overall in the system. So that's going to have to be something they address. But, it all depends on who they move. And, is Luis Roberts still there next year? If he's not traded before the deadline, is he traded in the offseason with 2 more years of control? Or, 1 more year and then 2 options of control. Is Crochet traded? So, what do they get back? What's the magnitude of trades they make before July 30th? So I think that all plays into the equation moving forward.
Bert, first of all, what a great first half your team had. They set all kinds of records for not the right things. What are they going to do in the second half? What is Chris Getz' plan? Is Crochet going to be there? Is Fetty going to be there? Is Luis Robert going to be there? Who would they move and who would they not move?
I don't think there's anyone. I think they still may trade you, even though you're not even there anymore. That's how open they are to trade.
He did retire.
Chris Getz would love to trade me if he could, but he's stuck with me.
No, they. I think they're open to trading literally anyone on that major league roster right now. And Chris has kind of made that clear from day one. He talked about that at the GM meetings in Arizona last year. Now, in terms of Crochet, who has 2 more years of arbitration control, Robert, who I just said, has the 1 year left and then 2 years. I think it's $20 million options each year. They're going to put a high ask up there. And if it's not met, they don't have to trade him. They'll still be with the team for the second half of the season. If it's met, then they will certainly. I kind of equate it to like, is a bad example, but if you have a piece of land that you don't have to sell, but you want to gauge what's out there, you ask for way above the value. And if someone comes in and says, or you ask for an enormous value, not even way above the value. If someone comes in and says, yeah, we'll buy it, you sell it. So I think that's how they kind of look at Crochet and Robert. They're very important to them, but they couldn't be important to them and what they bring back if those asks are met.
Okay.
All right.
Scott, awesome having you on. Thanks for the time.
Great being here.
And yeah, enjoy the rest of the draft. Everyone follow Scott's coverage on MLB.com. Follow him on Twitter or don't. Well, they might, just go against AJ and give you an extra follow just because of that. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, Scott, thank you for the time. Yeah.
Okay. Take care, guys.
You too.
American.
I love the relationship with AJ.
Now he
and
can't
his
complain
media
anymore
friends.
about me not having him on the show. Every time I see him, he's like, why don't you ever have me
You're
on?
right. That was the first time we had him on.
I know.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
That is tragic.
He's
I like
funny.
Scott. He's good.
One of the good
He's
ones.
great. That's what I mean.
He's one of the good ones.
Well, we can make a promise. We'll ask him again within the next few weeks because I feel like the White Sox are going to be relevant
We're
for
going to do something.
In
certain
10
reasons.
years, maybe. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully less.
All right, so we're going to step aside, and then we are going to talk to Hunter Pence about some of the picks that have come through since we had our last guest here. Be right back. Here we go. We're back. Scotty Braun, AJ Pierzynski, Erik Kratz, and Baseball America's JJ Cooper. We're flying through the first day of the MLB Draft. We are here at MLB Players House. We are right next to the ballpark, Texas Live. Thanks to Troy's for hosting us. And if you want to ask us questions, join our YouTube live chat right now. Just type in Foul Territory over in YouTube. Let's get caught up, JJ. So the last 3 picks since number 12 when we talked about Braden Montgomery to the Red Sox, James Tibbs, the third outfielder from FSU, goes to the San Francisco Giants. Cam Smith goes to the Chicago Cubs, FSU third baseman. And we have our switch pitcher, Jurrangelo St. out of Mississippi State, going to the Seattle Mariners. That's right. That should be his celebration or
He's going
something
to be a
like
right-handed pitcher, though, isn't he?
that. Not both.
See, I think he's actually.
You think
Go
he's going
ahead.
to do both?
No. Go ahead. Go.
I think it's going to be matchup specific. He's a right-handed pitcher, but if you've got a lefty stepping in who can't handle a slider,
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to, for this batter, lefty. Wait, then they're back again. He's a right-hander, but what he's going to be good enough at doing is he's going to be just good enough as a lefty to have to think about, do I want to put my lefty in there, my lefty bat, who can't hit a lefty?
Advantageous statistical analysis is what they called it. Is his slider matching up good against Juan Soto? No. So he's going to throw right-handed because his
100%.
velocity jumped. I think just in the last year, his velocity right-handed jumped.
Yeah, he's mid-90s, mid-90s fastball, right-handed. Left-handed, he's low 90s.
Right.
Yeah, but what I was told is legitimately right-handed, he's a first-round pick.
Yes.
As a
Yes.
right-handed. Lefty was kind of like, he's okay. But he was a legit first-round pick as a right-handed
Even
pitcher.
at Mississippi State, they did not
Better.
They did not use him as a righty-lefty. They used him as a matchup-specific lefty. There are a whole lot of lefties where he pitched right-handed to him because if they looked at it and said, no, this guy, you're not going to have the advantage, stay right-handed. But every now and then a guy would come in and is like, this guy, just throw your slider. Because really, from a left side, think of him as a lefty, that old loogie, slider guy. But he can do it, and then he can face the next 15 batters because he's a right-handed pitcher.
They were talking about it as advantageous statistical analysis. Like if Verdugo can't handle his slider and the direction that his sweeper's going, whatever his left-handed breaking ball is, he would use it. But if not, he would go right-handed because that velocity gets by guys. So I'm interested to see what happens because he improved his already unique talent in the last year to year and a half.
And it's the Mariners taking it. This is a team that lately has shown they have an idea of what they're doing with pitchers.
They can make pitchers.
So I kind of trust them to have enough ability, enough kind of open-mindedness to be like, okay, how do we best use them? They may find that maybe better on, you know what, your quality of your right-handed stuff goes down because we're having you also focus on that lefty. Maybe then they make him a pure right-handed pitcher. But they may find, no, he's done this long enough, he's comfortable enough doing it. Hey, let's figure out a way to do this. And by the way, if that does happen, that's going to be something where, baseball's supposed to be fun. This is fun. The idea of the guy where the guy steps in the box and you literally don't know. Lefty steps in the box, you don't know if he's going to go right-handed or left-handed.
No, he has to declare first, though.
The
pitcher has to declare first.
But as the guy's like, he's on deck, you don't know which way he's going to go. Because a lot of these guys, we've seen most of these guys have been kind of, the switch pitcher's been the junk baller, where he's never going to face a lefty from the right side. They say you're going to declare. The only time they had to declare was switch hitters. They really had to worry about it because you knew these guys weren't going to actually ever face a non-platoon. Senja's going to be a guy who's going to face lefties from the right side because he can get them out.
That's
Speak
awesome.
his name, Pat Venditti. Speak his name.
Pat Venditti.
Yeah, but he was a junk baller.
No, speak his name, Pat Venditti.
Okay, well, I have a name for you because we're going to talk to Hunter Pence in a moment about James Tibbs over for the Giants pick at 13. PJ Morlando just got taken by the Miami Marlins at 16th overall.
Whoa. Wow.
I like it. Hey, He's in the FT fam. We had him on. He's one of the first guys we had on for this draft class. And you know what? You didn't see his name in many places at this level. I think he felt like he was going to get picked at this level, and
he thought he should have been higher.
He thought he should have been
and
higher.
I love that.
He was kind of ticked off
and
about
I'll say,
not
I really
seeing his
like
name in
talking to him.
places.
It was this time last year I was talking to him because he was part of the high school home run derby, and he was hitting takes.
Yeah.
Oh
so
my
what
gosh.
happened? Why didn't teams respect him? Or clearly one did right here in the Miami Marlins.
Because it's a power first profile, and teams get prep bats that are power first profile. Teams get scared about that a lot of times. You know, it's one that some teams are willing to do that, and other teams are like, nope, we're just not going down that road. But it is big time power if it all clicks.
All right, two things. One, he's 19 already. We talked about his
Yeah.
age. So he's a year older.
He was a
right? So
reclasser.
he's a year older is one thing what teams are scared about. And two,
Position.
position. I mean, I guess he's going to be a first baseman. He doesn't run great. He's got like big old feet. Remember at the high school game last year? He had like these big old feet. But I will say this about PJ Orlando. He was personable. He was great to talk to. And two, we watched them all take BP. The only dude I looked at Kratz and I go, that guy's different, was him. The rest of them were, Connor Griffin, all of them. But when you saw this dude hit and you heard the ball come off his bat, I was like, that dude's different than the rest of them.
And it wasn't the same swing. I thought him and Tank Davis, Ben Davis's son, I thought they had the most adjustability to their swing. Like I saw him take the home run derby at bats. Granted, Chuck Fox put some big old bats in their hands and the balls were going a little bit farther. But he went from like a high leg kick to a spread out to adjusting and putting together good at bats against the guys in a game. All-American game was dudes just throwing absolute fuel. Like they just turned the machine up as high as they could go, and it was like boo, boo, boo. And he adjusted and put together great at bats. So there was things that I really liked. I completely agree with AJ.
Let's get to our next guest, Hunter Pence,
Hunter
friend
Pence.
of FT, joining us right now to talk about the Giants pick. Hunter, great to have you on. And let's get right into James Tibbs III, selected by the San Francisco Giants at number 13 overall. How you doing, man? It's great to see you. You enjoying this draft?
Oh, yeah, it's been exciting. And I've gotten to talk with a lot of these players. I've gotten to watch a lot of these players. And it is an exciting draft. And there's a lot of them, you fall in love with them when you see some of the swings like you just said about PJ Orlando. Like, look at how short and compact that is. It's fun to watch him hit BP. But, yeah, it's been pretty spectacular. There's a lot of talent this year. It's like some of the most insane talent that we've seen. And I think we're realizing that when you watch, a Skeen starting the All-Star game a year after he was drafted.
Hunter, could you actually be a really good evaluator of this talent? Because you're just like, oh, my gosh, this guy is the best. He is going to be awesome. I believe in him no matter what. The kid could have, he could not even be able to get any hits. And can you be a true evaluator of this since you've been out of the game?
Well, I think if you get behind closed doors, I've watched a lot of baseball, and I love to have those conversations with teammates, Kratzy, where, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of this guy? Like, I think he's going to, and we've done that throughout the years. But when you play against a lot of players and you learn a lot, when you're looking for body language, you're looking for, who is winning a lot of games? Who are those little glue guys that go everywhere? There's a lot of little things. And I think, would I be good? Who knows? But is it something I love to do? Yes. And speaking of Tibbs, how involved am I with the Giants? They have their process. They're really good. But I did get to talk to Farhan before the draft, and we were talking about some of the players that were going to be there. And he brought him up about, they think this is one of the best hit tools in the whole draft. They think he's really smart. He was one that Farhan singled out. He's like, I hope he gets to us. We don't know if he is. But they also love the clutch, the passion, the fire. There's something to that, a little bit more intangibles. But a 1265 OPS, 28 homers, that also looks good as well.
Okay, so Hunter, you've looked at these guys. Who else did you like? What are the picks that you've seen so far that really jumped out to you?
I mean, there's a couple of them. I mean, obviously Condon going 3 to the Rockies. Just for me, like how tall he is, the hip mobility. We knew he wasn't coming down to pick number 13, but I was a little shocked. And obviously Burns has the upside, number 2. But it's definitely an over nasty arm. And he's crazy. But for me, it's just what Condon did, the homers he hit, the hip mobility, how tall he is. It's going to be easy for him to get big leverage. It's tough to say that, Bazana is just that good too. So there's so many great picks. I think also Caglione fall into the Royals. That one's pretty crazy to me because he's one of those guys that he's already given you a little bit of a lead just walking onto the field. Just look at him and he's an intimidating guy.
Hunter, with Tibbs, your Giants pick, who's his comp? Who's his comp when the Giants were like, we're going to take Tibbs? When they were in the room, they were like, this is the guy he reminds me of.
I'm trying to think of a comp, and they actually said, it's tough but Conforto is someone he models his game after. They think that he's obviously not the speed and the athlete of Conforto, but the hand-eye coordination, the balance swing. You're looking at 28 homers at Florida State. You're looking at a guy with a 1260 OPS in college. It's pretty unheard of. I think of like You think of guys that have just great hand-eye coordination. If you could take like Pablo Sandoval's hands, it's not like he's not the best body, the best athlete, but he's just a dude that's going to put the ball in play, that's going to fight, that's adjustable and can battle you in any situation. So I'm not going to say he's like Pablo Sandoval per se, but just that hand-eye coordination mixed with the balance of a Conforto. So I'm gonna kind of blend and mix and match. But for me, there's a grittiness and a grindiness and a fire and a passion, that edge that I think is really exciting, that Giants fans are going to be excited when they watch this guy play.
All right, Hunter, based on your career, somebody said you're going into the draft, this is the career you're going to have, exactly Hunter Pence career. Are you 1-1?
Am I 1-1? No, I wouldn't think so. I stunk. I need to be way better than that, man.
Wait, you're saying if you take Hunter Pence's career, stats, titles, the whole deal, and you hand it to a team, at least during some seasons, and you say, hey, you can have this guarantee for your first overall pick,
Are you
I'll swing it to JJ. Don't you think you would take
that? This is a minor league baseball discussion all the time.
But do you know how many guys?
I think that's a great question. I think it's a fun question.
Yeah.
Now, which draft is it? I mean, if
that's the
is
thing.
It Mike Trout's draft, then you're what you weren't part of. But then I'm taking Trout. No offense, Hunter, but but in most drafts,
sorry, Hunter.
How could you? How could you?
No, it's more interesting for like this year, right? Like this year's draft.
If I know I'm getting Hunter Pence's career, I'm taking him because
last year different.
Yeah, because I know I'm getting that.
I completely agree. Hunter Pence is 1-1 without a doubt. AJ Pierzynski is 1-1 without a doubt. You cannot pass that up.
Last year might be different because now you already got
Erik Kratz
to see some work.
Is still
where you go?
Maybe 10.
I mean,
round 10, not 10.
10th round.
Kratz, you're 1-1 to me.
I'm 1-1 in your heart. That's different. You can't waste the bonus money on
all right,
me.
fair enough.
One other one to ask with that, though, Hunter, because you always were famous for your swing. If you were coming up now, do you think you would be allowed to keep that swing?
Well, let's face it, there's no real option because they tried to coach me, and I just don't really – it's not that I didn't want to do it. We actually found out way later in my career that I have Schumann's disease, which is like a T-spine disorder. It's bone on bone. So, it's actually an anomaly that I was able to play. I don't have that T-spine flexibility to really rotate. So I just had to figure it out. And I think I was just a guy who loved to play. I hit a lot. I practiced a lot. It was very intrinsically motivated, and just worked on hand-eye coordination. And I would say just I would think about the game in a lot of different ways and try to find ways to make myself better. But I don't think that I was gifted with the flexibility, the mobility. I always talk to Buster, watching his swing. And you look at how far he could wrap his bat around, or you look at a Seager and how they're and Bellinger, how they're smacking the back of their back. That's a flexibility thing that I didn't have that. But I was strong and I was fast and I was an athlete and I had good hand-eye coordination, quick hands that could put the ball in play. But did I have good plate discipline? I think today's day and age, they're judging your plate discipline. I was swinging at everything and I could make contact with it, but my pitch decision was terrible. So I think that's something that they really get evaluated on now, and I think that would be something that would definitely hurt me. But you look at I remember in our draft, Dustin Pedroia was right there too, and I'm taking Dustin Pedroia 1-1. But for me, I think there's something to a Dustin Pedroia. You look at a grit, a fighter, a passion. Play the game hard is something. I think as a scout, I want to see how you carry yourself. I want to see how you handle failure, and how many times do you come back, and how does your body language change. And I think that's one thing that we got really good here with James Tibbs III.
And they have radar guns now measuring how hard you hit a baseball.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, but you would have been top.
But I don't like that.
That doesn't matter if you don't like it. You ruined my life, my first game in the big leagues, because you hit a fastball that I was like, if that's how I have to hit in the big leagues, I'm screwed, because you would murder baseballs. And I watched you play. Yes, you worked hard, blah, blah, blah. But you would have shot up because of your freakish talent and your focus of the game. I got to hit one more Giants question here. Farhan, with his comments the other day, didn't really put a lot of hope for me as a baseball fan that the Giants are going to really do much. Do you feel like they're going to go hard at the trade deadline here?
I think these last couple games really meant a lot, and I think Snell going 7 today, the walk-off win. The thing is this is a big head-scratcher team because Farhan went, the Giants went back into the pockets and made some big splashes. They brought in Soler, they brought in Chapman, they brought in Snell, and obviously we got Robbie Ray, who's looking good. He's going to be coming back very soon. He's got one more start. And this team is like, Bob Melvin's quotes even was like, they're fighting. And it is. It's a team that's really got a lot of glue. And, they've lost a lot of really, really close games. But the work ethic, the camaraderie, the team, the chemistry, which is something that's hard to really explain. And it's a fun team to watch. The record isn't exactly what you would think, but it's easy to believe that they can really make it. Now, last year, they were actually 9 games over 500, I think, at the break. But did you really believe in the talent? Did you have like some of these guys that are coming that are established that can like be huge impacts? It's easy to believe. I think it's a little frustrating losing the series to the Blue Jays after having a great road trip where they won a series against the Dodgers. They won 3 out of 4 against the Cubs. They went in Atlanta. So some tough series. But I think the big win today against the Twins, what Snell showed us, I think they're going to be buyers. This is the San Francisco Giants. I think he was a little bit frustrated, which is suffice to say he had every right to be. And but he wants to see them. He wants to challenge them, and he wants to see them know, like, hey, if you want to buy, you want to get in, because this team wants to be in the playoffs. It's a bunch of guys that are grinding. It's some veterans. It's a team that's ready. Show me. And they finished up here the second half pretty strong right there. And it's easy to believe that they can really make a push if you just add a piece or two.
Hunter, you've been involved in amateur baseball as well. How has it changed? How is it better? How is it worse? How is it different? I guess I would be the ask. Now and what is it doing now for these guys? Like it does. One thing that jumps out is we see guys who are more big league ready coming up more quickly. It seems like this. But how has it changed to you?
Look, I love it, and I think it's so much better now. And I think this is also a reason why it's so much easier to evaluate talent. Because, if you want to get better at something, you need to play against someone like the best. You need to play against someone better than you. If you're playing against someone not as good as you or worse than you or not even in the same skill range, you don't really make yourself better. And so, there's all of these tournaments and everything's like kind of under scrutiny, that everything is measured in exit velo, and you see your velocity at every tournament, and the stats are there. But they know who the best players are because they continue to do it, and you bring the best teams together at many different tournaments. And I'm watching my nephews go through it right now, and they're all getting way better than we ever were at that time because they all know the best players, and they're all playing against each other over and over again. So I think that this teaches them how to play under pressure, because there's a lot of scouts, even when you're at 15, already watching you. College is already talking to you. So they get numb to this way earlier, but they're also playing against and rated from age 14 on, even 13, 12, like the top 10 at this age. And, they see that dream and they have a goal. I want to be higher. They start working at it. So I think that if they really want it and they're intrinsic, the path is there for you to go and play the best. And then if you win or lose or whatever, how do you get better? I think the board challenge is when you're at the top, do you go and play against the higher, older players and continue to challenge yourself? So I think that it's really beautiful what they have. They have opportunities and options, and fans are liking it. I think Darren Sutton, what he's done at Perfect Game, and I get to obviously work with him on the radio show where we get to talk with a lot of the great college kids and college coaches. And I've learned so much about the game through that show. But what Darren Sutton does, broadcasting all the showcases, putting a highlight on it, and they're getting a lot of people loving to watch it. The players are good. They have personalities, and he's put in a lot of work to make that happen. So for me, I think it's awesome because you're watching the best play the best. And if you're not ready for that level, they have a level for you. So you don't see these 21-2 games and it's just an easy steamroll and you're like, oh, I'm already too good at baseball. No, they're good players, play the best players.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, you can get humbled in a situation like that, which is good for you. Hunter, awesome to talk to you as always. Make sure you check out Hunter on all the Perfect Game coverage. Check him out on San Francisco Giants TV coverage as well. Enjoy the rest of the draft, my friend.
All right. Thank you all for having me and listening to me blab. Kratzy, great to see you. AJ, you're the best. And Brawny, you as well. And thank you guys so much. Have a good show.
Thank you. Appreciate you. We'll be right back on FT to get caught up on some picks. Hey everyone, we're back on the FT Draft Takeover. We're on Valley Sports TV. You're watching us on YouTube as well. We're taking your questions a little bit later on. So if you want to watch on YouTube and just take in some questions and give them over to us, we will answer those later on. I have a question right now. Scotty Braun with Erik Kratz and JJ Cooper and AJ Pierzynski. JJ, let's get caught up because we didn't really talk about Cam Smith to the Cubs. We didn't really talk about Braylon Payne going to the Milwaukee Brewers. Theo Gillen went to the Tampa Bay Rays. Carson Bench to the New York Mets. So fill us in a little bit here on what you've seen over these last 5-6 picks.
The one that really jumps out is Payne, because we had Payne rated as our 54th player on our board. That doesn't mean he's not a very good player. That's 54 on a BA 500. But it does mean that we didn't expect to see him go this high. I would say with that, though, that you would expect that what that probably means. We see this pretty regularly. That's a money saver pick. That's a guy who the Brewers really like. They probably value more than most of the industry, but they also know that they can get him at a below slot deal. And so you combine the two, and now they have more money to spend down the road. That's going to be an interesting one that really kind of we'll see how that goes. And Gillen was one of the best prep, shortstop athletes hit. But again, I don't want to make it sound like he can't hit, but he can. But I love him going to the Rays because this is the kind of player that the Rays, they don't hit on it all the time, but they love this kind of guy, and they often make this work.
I know Theo had, the torn labrum surgery in high school, and, some reports have said that the arm hasn't returned.
Which, you know what? The Rays did this in the first round before. That was Greg Jones. Greg Jones was this great athletic shortstop outfielder, but he had an arm problem that kind of had led to some questions about his defense. Defense ended up not being really the problem for Jones. Jones just had strikeout issues. They ended up trading him. He's now made the majors for the Rockies. But I can't help but that come to mind because this is the guy who had throwing issues before the Rays drafted him in the first round.
And Carson Bench, Oklahoma State.
This is you look at this Mets team, and I kind of like where their farm system's going now. Christian Scott, who's come up already, but I feel like they have more pitching. We talked to Brandon Sproat Friday. He was in the Futures game Saturday. We've talked to Jonah Tong on the Hot Sheet show. There's some arms percolating here. There's some bats as well. Now out of them, Kevin Parada is the catcher, first round pick a couple years ago, hasn't developed as quickly as hoped. But Jet Williams, who's a guy who a little small, but man, that guy can fly.
He's their top prospect right now on the Baseball America list,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So I kind of like where they're going, and Benj is a nice addition to this. Benj is the guy who could be, again, you talk about these two-way guys in college. There aren't as many of those there used to be because now a lot of these programs are like, I don't need that guy anymore. I can get arms because I can take transfers in. Benj was a guy good enough to do it, but I do think that now that he's probably going to focus full-time on I think he's got a chance to even add a little bit more.
It's funny. I had this written down. I don't know who I got it from, so I'll just throw it out there. I'm mostly reading Baseball America articles, but I put Milwaukee down here because they're looking for swing decision, exit velocity, defensive mix. Well, it wasn't to the Brewers, but it was the guy who used to run the Brewers in David Stearns. So maybe you get a little shade of what David Stearns likes to do, and he brings that over to the New York Mets. And then one more here, guys, Trey Yesavage, and I might be messing the name up a little bit. I nailed it? Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Number 20 overall, goes to the Toronto Blue Jays, East Carolina right-handed pitcher, and could be another guy kind of quicker to the major leagues and one of the top college pitchers available.
I love that pick.
Yeah.
I love that pick. To get him where they did, if you're Toronto sitting there watching, not just sitting there, but scouting the season and the postseason in college baseball, look at what he was doing at ECU, you would not imagine that you would be seeing him still on the board at 20. I'm not saying he's not in that top tier. He's not as high a ceiling. He doesn't have the pure stuff maybe of a Chase Burns or a Hagen Smith for that matter. But the guy can really pitch. He's got a track record of success. And the other thing we've seen multiple times in recent years is these really good college pitchers who find a little bit of an additional gear when they get to pro ball. That doesn't happen as much now because now some of those training programs and all have gotten to college, but that was what the Guardians did so well with the Biebers and all of the world. But I do think that there may be a little bit more in the tank there, and he already can really show that he can just churn through a lineup.
Savage is the guy who beat Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Sent Wake Forest home. Let's not forget he matched up in the regionals and sent Wake Forest with 3 top 10 picks. So he's definitely got a track record. He knows how to pitch.
Yeah, we're looking at his numbers right now. Props to the team behind the scenes for putting together tons of video, graphics, the whole deal for many of the picks that you're seeing tonight.
Pitchers in the draft. You see that? Oh, wait.
And not what it says.
I was like, don't mess with me.
6'4",
Team poll in 2026.
6'4", 225. This is a guy who also he's shown that he can eat the innings. He can be that guy who takes the ball and goes deep into games. There's just a lot to like here. And again, if you're the Blue Jays, who, let's be honest, the Blue Jays have had a season that if they could rewind and go, wait, well, how did it get here? It's got everything's gone wrong. They're probably getting ready to sell off. The farm system's not particularly loaded right now. And on top of that, you also add to it the fact that a number of their top arms, their top prospects keep getting hurt. They need Trey. They need him to kind of step up because they need the help.
He can step up soon.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep letting you know about picks. We're also going to bring in another guest in just a moment. We're going to talk to C. Trent Rosecrans all the way back early on in the draft about pick number 2 overall. And we'll kind of reset, too, if you're joining us. I know we're on for a while here. If you're watching on YouTube or on Valley Sports, Chase Burns goes to the Cincinnati Reds, a pitcher in the 2 spot. That moves Charlie Condon down to the Colorado Rockies at number 3. Nick Kurtz went 4 to the Oakland A's. So we're getting you caught up on picks. We're reviewing what we've seen so far in the draft. We are 20 picks through round 1 of the MLB draft right now. Just going back for a moment, JJ, what do you think the theme so far of the draft has been? Or like if you're putting up a top headline on Baseball America through the first 20 picks, obviously the number 1 overall pick gets the attention for what he does in Travis Bazzana, but what do you think would grab headlines from people who are like dialed in on this draft?
I'll say this. We talked about the SEC, and the SEC was incredible again this year. But look at the ACC also. We've seen, 3 Wake Forest players already go. We saw back-to-back FSU players go. By the way, the name we haven't seen yet that I'll be fascinated to see is Vance Honeycutt, speaking of the ACC, UNC, who is probably the most athletic, and he's been an impactful player for multiple years in college baseball, but we're still seeing him on the board because he's had strikeout concerns. He's had strikeout questions, how much contact he's going to make. But if you get into the 20s and you can get a guy like that, all of a sudden.
He was talking about 1-1 at one point.
This guy has performed every time
but
he goes out there.
But he played in the ACC. The SEC, we saw what they did to them in the College World Series. Bye-bye.
He made it. I mean, they did. North Carolina had a great season. He was a key part of it. Was a key part of that incredible super regional game.
He's getting knocked for contact, though, right? That's
the whole knock. That's the knock. The knock is can a guy who strikeouts that much? The 2 guys who I think are facing that the most who have performed are him and Dakota Jordan, Mississippi State. Did I do it right that time?
Yeah.
Mississippi State.
Yeah.
But, those are the 2 guys I would say who face the biggest concerns about that. And if you took that away, everything else is great. I go back years ago. This is kind of the in Honeycutt, I kind of think a little bit of Drew Stubbs, who was this exceptional defender, could run, had power. It was always just about the hit tool. And you know what? Drew Stubbs ended up having a very solid career.
Yeah, good guy, too. I played with him. I played with him in Texas. Great guy.
Perfect.
Love Drew Stubbs.
He was perfect.
Oh, and that's good timing to bring in our next guest who covered Drew Stubbs as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's C. Trent Rosecrans, covers the Reds for The Athletic, and he's joining us right now to go over that top pick.
Why would you wear that? You knew what you were doing.
He knows it.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
He's wearing his bathing suit right now for you.
Well, did you have this queued up, C. Trent, for Charlie Condon?
Of course.
Because everyone just said, "Oh, it's a lock."
It was for both AJ and JJ. So everybody who has initials for names, this is the hat. Well, JJ and I go back a long way. So
were you guys like frat brothers together?
We go so far back. No, I'm older than Trent. We go back so far that when I first met Trent and we went out to dinner after covering games at UGA, I was the just out of school. He was in school, completely clean shaven.
You bought him beer.
Wow.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You bought
What
C.
year are
Trent
we
beer.
talking about here?
Oh, like
We're
95,
talking-
96, 90, 95, 96.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah,
so if
so-
I would have Georgia recruited me, I told him to, hump my leg. Yeah, I would have been there at that time. They recruited me hard, but I could never go there.
Couldn't do it.
No chance.
If there was
Couldn't cut it
NIL money, you would go
academically.
there right now.
Yeah, academically, I was like, I don't want to go to junior college. Junior college would have been tougher than Georgia.
Hey, C. Trent. So, do you think the Reds target pitchers with high-level picks in the first round because of the ballpark and how it's tough to recruit those players? Obviously, you like the player, too. It's the second overall pick. But there are going to be question marks. There's going to be a lot of Reds fans following the career of Charlie Condon, who's also going to have the gift of Coors Field, and they're going to say, hold up, we didn't pick that guy?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair question going in it too. But you also have the question of, like, if you guys watch college baseball this year, you saw a lot of offense. You didn't see a whole lot of pitching. So it's something that I've kind of been thinking about over the last hour or so is like, well, if you're not sure, because so much of this time was splitting hairs between really three hitters. And I think for the Reds, it was 3 hitters that they were splitting hairs between Jack the Florida Gator, Cags.
Caglione.
Jack Cags.
Caglione. Yeah. You can't even use the K. Too hard in Florida to get that many letters. And then Charlie Condon and also Travis Bazzana. So I think one of the things is you're like splitting, like, what kind of hitters are these guys? College baseball this year, you had so many, I don't know, it's like you just, the pitching stunk more or less overall. The balls were juiced and the bats were juiced. So, like, what is real? And if you're debating what is real, you know what's real? 191 strikeouts in 100 innings.
Makes sense.
And the thing about that trend is you look at the Reds and you see where this is potentially going, and you look at it and you say, okay, they have Hunter Green, they have Nick Lodolo, they have more arms than that, especially if everyone can get healthy. But Burns plus Louder to that, this could get really interesting, I feel like.
Right. And Cags is going to hit homers in any park in the world. That's one of the things that, like, kind of was strange to me is everybody, can you imagine this guy at Great American Ballpark? And I was like, that's like a waste, right? That's like a guy who's like 12 foot tall. Like, yeah, can you imagine him dunking everywhere? Yeah, of course he's going to dunk anywhere. I just don't know, like, Cags is going to hit home runs, and like that power, honestly, it's as real as there anything is in this draft is Cags power. But there's something to be said for getting young pitchers. They signed Hunter Green to an extension last year. He was a number 2 overall guy, like Chase Burns, and I think there's something to be said for you can turn this ballpark can help not mediocre, but like less talented hitters into greater hitters more than it could do that to pitchers. And in the end, you go high upside on pitchers, and there was no higher upside pitcher in this draft than Chase Burns.
Immediately you mentioned that last line about what this ballpark can do, and I know he is defeating this ballpark right now, but I got to mention Rhys Hines. I mean, kind of came out of left field, and look what he's doing right now. So is that the example to use?
Well, I mean, it's 6 games. He didn't have a hit today, too, so he's done. But yeah, I mean, Rhys Hines has, like, that's Cags type power. Rhys Hines, when he hits those balls, they're going out of anywhere. You're not talking a punch and Judy guy like some backup catcher. You're talking like a guy with real power. I'm sorry. I always just like, I don't know why I'm always picking on AJ, but it's more fun. And like AJ has a couple more home runs than I do.
He said backup catcher. I thought that was a jest at me.
Yeah, sorry, good point.
Yeah,
that's
a backup.
That got
What's a
confused.
backup? What's a
No,
backup?
And
Backup
he didn't even have a. He didn't even have a backup catcher when he played. He just played every game.
That's true. That's true. Backup catchers are my favorite people in the world because they're they will always talk. They will always talk. And
it's
so
because they don't play.
Right.
And they got to get their energy out. They don't play, so they got to do something.
I'm sorry. Nobody has ever accused AJ of not talking. So we will.
See, Trent's loose. It's the All-Star break.
He's
He's loose.
I don't know what he was doing before he came on, but I got an idea.
It's the break.
It's the break.
But Trent, I did want to throw an example because when Jesse Winker was coming through the minors, he always hit for average. He always got on base. And when you talk to Reds officials, he's the example that comes out to me because it's like, oh yeah, his power. Don't worry. Once he gets to Great American Ballpark, he'll hit 20 to 25. And he did. And then as soon as he was traded from the Reds, the power just went away. Is that kind of the guy who comes out to your mind?
That's a really good one. I mean, we were talking about today. Santiago Espinal has a couple homers, recently, and has been showing a little bit more power. I don't worry about powers. If I'm the Cincinnati Reds and I'm looking at players, this is why I was leaning for Condon over Cags, other than superior education, was that doubles. Like, I want a doubles hitter at Great American Ballpark because those doubles are going to go out. I remember when they got Eugenio Suarez, and like when he first got there, he was a doubles hitter, and then he hits 45, 47 bombs when he's at Great American. Now he's still hit bombs elsewhere. A lot of that was maturity, getting bigger, getting stronger. But yeah, I want the doubles hitters at Great American Ballpark because those doubles turn into home runs as opposed to outs that turn into home runs for some of those big power guys that'll pop it up. I would rather have a double if it doesn't go out of the park than a pop-up.
So Trent, along those lines, so look at the trade deadline, and the Reds feel like a team. I can't figure out which way they're going. I don't know if they can. Do you have a sense of, are they in? Are they out? Are they looking at it and saying, because of the injuries they had in the first half, they're probably going to sell, or because of the injuries they had in the first half, they're probably going to see if they can add to it because maybe they'll get some of these guys back?
I think there is a fine line where they have some depth in the bullpen. Everybody always wants bullpen. Maybe they could do a little bit of both. Sell off some of that bullpen depth, which is being tested because bullpen depth is always tested, and get some other people, especially once you have guys like Rhett Lauder coming up in the pipeline. So I think there's a way that you could do both, or there is also a way where you sell off. I don't know if this is the year that you sell all in. You go all in, just because there is so much volatility. But listen, to me, it's almost like there's one good team in the National League, and that's the Phillies, and two bad teams in the National League, and that's the Marlins and Rockies, two teams we just saw here. And after that, it's all, I don't know, a wash. We are a wash in mediocrity or parity if you're the NFL and you pretend that that's good.
That's right. There's only a few teams truly out of it at the moment in the National League. In the National League, yeah,
Rockies,
especially.
Marlins,
Rockies,
Cubs.
Marlins.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Cubs. That's
the
crazy.
Cubs just have had kind of a nice. Yeah, who knows? And I think that's because
a
of
better
the Cubs.
week.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, at this point, everybody's in that jumbled mess of just averageness. So,
yeah, and I mean, we have 2-ish weeks till the trade deadline, 2.5, but I don't know how much is going to get figured out there. They probably will all play 500 baseball as they've been doing through that point. So, C. Trent, thanks for joining us. Perfect hat for the
reckless drivers.
Yeah, well, hey, we don't pay them to drive. We pay them to play football. So, two dogs.
There you go. Perfect way to end it. I love that. Thank you, C. Trent Rosecrans. Check him out. Read his work in The Athletic, covering the Cincinnati Reds, and give him a follow. We'll post a clip or two from that conversation, and we'll be right back to get you caught up on more picks. Hello, everyone watching on Valley Sports TV, on the app, on YouTube, at Foul Territory Show. If you want to check us out there, it's Scotty Braun, AJ Pierzynski, Erik Kratz from the FT fam, along with our friend JJ Cooper from Baseball America. We've been covering the draft all night long, giving you pick-by-pick analysis, mixing in guests. So, again, JJ, let's get caught up on some picks that came through while we were talking to Cesar and Rosecrans. Number 21 overall, the Minnesota Twins select Kalen Culpepper. Athletic, big arm, shortstop, Kansas State. We'll talk about, what he did also in the playoffs this year. Vance Honeycutt was the name you just brought up, and he did get picked by the Baltimore Orioles. And then also Kellen Lindsey, a prep shortstop, going to the Los Angeles Dodgers.
The Orioles have several types, but one of their types is they love outfielders, college outfielders, more than most teams. It's not just Kalzer and Kierstad. It's Fabian. It's Hudson Haskin. It's Reed Trimble. They really don't mind taking, if they like the bat, especially if they like the bat and the athleticism, they are probably, I would say, a little bit more aggressive at taking those guys than a lot of teams. Now, it's been hit or miss for them. There are a lot of names there that probably people really recognize, and I'm guessing there's not a whole lot of Hudson Haskin and Reed Trimble, experts in, listening. You're going, wait, that's because it's a little hit or miss, but they have had a lot of success with it. And again, when you talk about a guy like Honeycutt, to get him 22nd overall and to get him into an organization that has done a really good job of helping guys get better. We talk about Gunnar Henderson, and Gunnar was not a finished product when they drafted him. Gunnar, to his credit, did a lot of work, but the Orioles did a lot of work as well. There have been a lot of guys who've gotten better as hitters. If they can do that to Vance Honeycutt, even if they can get him to be a 40 hitter, a below average, just a little bit below average hitter, everything else is going to carry him to a long big league career. But the other one that jumps out to me here is when you look at Culpepper, this is a draft that didn't have a ton of up-the-middle college position players, especially first-rounders. Culpepper is one who can absolutely do that. It is interesting. He's going to an organization that has pretty loaded infield now. Again, you don't draft for need, but if you look at Royce Lewis at third, you look at Correa, at short, you look at Brooks Lee, who's started to play second for them, and that's not counting Julian, who's been there. That's not counting Miranda, who's played third for them as well. This is a team that now has a whole lot of infielders, that he's joining that group. But again, you acquire talent, you develop talent, and then you figure out those problems later. Culpepper's a guy who was, again, one of the better up-the-middle defenders who can also hit. Like, this is not a gloved-only guy, but this is the guy who is a legit up-the-middle guy in a draft that didn't have a ton of this.
And I got one more for you that just came through. It's Cam Caminiti, number 24 overall, to the Atlanta Braves. Here's someone who some people thought would go much higher, and I think some Braves fans are going to be excited about this one.
If I was a Braves fan, I'd be thrilled about this because what do the Braves love to do? I mean, the Braves, you can draft position players. The Braves are like, yeah, we don't need to do that. They're not the Angels of that draft where they took all pitchers for 20 rounds, but they are one that goes pitcher heavy year after year after year to get Caminiti. Caminiti's one of there are not many high school pitchers in this class who are worthy of a first-round pick. Caminiti's one who we would have been surprised to see him off the board already before this pick. So to get him where they did and get him in an organization that they've battled some injuries, but they've also pushed a whole lot of pitchers to the big leagues pretty quickly. And by the way, they not only did that, but they had a fourth-round pick in 2020 that was if you redid that draft, Spencer Strider might go 1-1, and they got him in the fourth round. They've had some ability to really develop some of those guys studs
for years.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Kellen Lindsey.
Yeah,
now he's got to be one of the fastest risers of all time because this guy literally. I mean, y'all don't know where Hardy High School is. It's like where Andrew McCutcheon grew up. Like it's in the middle, right? Yeah. And this guy was a football player, and I have a good friend of mine I have a couple friends of mine that are scouts in the Florida area, and that's their area. And they both were like, you got to talk about this Lindsey kid. I'm like, who is he? He's like a football player, but he has like 9 speed, apparently. He can fly. And he's kind of come out of nowhere, 23rd overall pick. I mean, it's kind of an incredible story because going before 2 months ago, if you would have said, who's Kellen Lindsey, people would have been like, I never heard of that kid.
reminds me, he's bigger, but he does remind me, we talked about Jet Williams earlier. Jet Williams was also a football, baseball player. Now he's doing it in Texas, but the same thing where you're a football player who plays baseball a lot of times because you're in Texas, or in some ways you're in Florida. And he kind of really, athletic, fly, can play. You don't know where he's going to play long term because Lindsey's a guy who is tempting to put in center and just say, okay, let's let that 80 speed cover, all the way from left field to right field, and anything in between is his. And he's kind of that guy too. It's going to be fascinating to see how he develops because, like you said, this is a guy who 2 years ago I don't think he was anywhere on our list. Last year he wasn't really on our list. This year you're like, boom, run him up. I think we ended up with him at 27 on the board, and this is the guy who I don't think was in our preseason top 100. A way too early top 100 a year ago.
I got a question from the crowd here, so I will take you to Kyle in the YouTube chat. Who makes it to the big leagues the quickest from this draft class?
Hagen Smith
That's what you think?
or Burns.
Christian Moore. He's an angel.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I was going down the
the
list.
token answer.
I don't
That's
think
the
he'll make it
token.
this year, though. I don't think Christian Moore will make it this year.
I don't think he will either.
Smith will?
No.
Yeah.
But I think he's got a chance because the White Sox are not good to break with the team next year.
I just think with Christian Moore, while he may not make it this year, if he doesn't, he'll be in Double-A by the time we snap our fingers.
I'll say this too. I hate the new. You probably like it. I hate the way the draft is now, because you used to be able, when the draft was in early June, you could sign these guys and get them 2 months in the minor leagues. Now they get like a month-ish, But it used to be you could get like 2 or 3 months. That's how Chris Sale made it so quick, right? Because he was drafted in June. In August, after 2 months, we were kind of in the playoff race. So this is our lefty guy out of the bullpen.
I don't love it because this week's too much. This is like being at the buffet and then them saying, hey, by the way, you enjoy the steak? How about the ribs? I've got a really nice salmon here for you. By the way, they've got 7 desserts. Futures game plus draft plus all-star game all the same weekend plus home run derby. It's too much.
It's too much.
It's too much. The futures game is suffering because of it.
The futures game got buried the last couple years. Buried. Nobody is talking about
it. That crowd yesterday, I've been to, I think this is 12 futures games now. That's the worst crowd I've ever seen in a futures game. I don't know. Part of that, Kansas City was the best, and I think that's partly because it was a perfect timing of in Kansas City at the time when the team was on a rise. But that crowd yesterday was sparse. And playing that game on Saturday when the entire schedule's still going on and it still feels like All-Star break's a little ways away, it's not helping that.
One of the best games of the year I was watching was the Tigers come back against the Dodgers in the 9th inning on Saturday, and it's like, oh, and the futures game's starting, and I'm like, I'm not changing the channel.
I'm not
Sorry.
missing it.
I'll check out highlights later or something like that, and I love prospects, but I'm like, there's too many good baseball games on right now. So you're right. It's a good call. Jay in the chat. Oh, we're getting a few here. Ref, who's always with us, said, why do teams draft and keep guys for years in the minors, yet pay them well over the league minimum since they are round 1 draft picks?
I'm sorry, say
sure
that
I
again.
totally
I had
get the
trouble
question.
hearing.
Sorry, they're singing the Colombian
They're
national
singing the
anthem
Colombian
right
national
now,
anthem so
which
loudly.
is actually, it's really awesome because
epic.
it makes you appreciate how much people love their national anthem. I mean, where we're at right now, Texas Live, Troy's Live in Arlington, there is the soccer game is about to start, and it is all Columbia. I mean, you walk to the bathroom or you walk outside, looks like you're in Columbia with all the yellow jerseys, and they are blasting the national anthem. Not loud, they're singing it loud. You can hear it.
Yeah, so I want to answer that question. But
I think he's talking about players in the first round getting big bonuses, and then you go to the minor leagues and you're not making much. That's kind of the point.
Well, that's also not nearly as true as it used to be. What did you make?
It was a month, my first year.
And how about the per diem?
$20 a day.
$20 a day. You're on the road.
On the road,
and you, by the way, without a car, and you're supposed to. And by the way, and what was your pregame dining and your postgame dining in the clubhouse?
Peanut butter and jelly and some Cytomax.
Great way to raise a prospect.
Underneath a stadium that had dirt floors.
So
Unreal.
That was then. Now meals, pregame meal, postgame meal, catered, paid for by the club.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum salaries are now in the $28,000 to $30,000, $32,000 range, depending on the lower levels of the minors. You are for spring training. You are paid for extended. You are paid for instructs or wherever.
They have an off-season salary that's like $250, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have all those things now, and you also get your housing covered, which was always the dumbest thing in the world. Is that you could be? It used to be that you could be moved 4 times in a year, and every time it was the player's responsibility to figure
out housing. Like, hey, welcome to the Brooklyn Cyclone. You're in New York City.
San Jose Giants.
It's crazy.
Don't even worry about the fact that you went from the San Jose Giants to the Norwich, Connecticut Defenders across the country, and you still had to pay for your San Jose apartment.
Right.
And for your apartment in Norwich, Connecticut.
So the point of this is all of that's gotten a lot better. And the thing about the bonuses is now at the top of the draft, you make a big bonus. And then we will be talking about players tomorrow, and we'll be talking about players on Tuesday who will make $25K as a bonus or whatever. But that's how this works. I mean, if you're saying to try to explain it, before all the salaries were raised, if you wanted to take all the money that was sent out in bonuses and divide it equally, everyone in the minors could have made about $42,000 a year. But in doing that, you would also say that a Paul Skeens under that system would get basically nothing and then would get paid major league minimum to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. Like the only thing that Skeens is on major league minimum now, but at least in his case, he did pocket $9 million. Why did he pocket that? 9+? Because his talent was such that they're still getting a bargain.
Yeah, and you do, I will say this, you do have to draw players to baseball, the top talent to baseball. So if you're not going to pay them in the minors, and even in the majors, it takes you a while to get really pro athlete rich, like others do in other sports. It becomes very unenticing if you don't give them money early on.
It's already right now, if you are a true, like, I can choose whatever, football, basketball, baseball,
Mm-hmm.
baseball loses out on a lot of those guys because it's just a much tougher path. Now, this is going to change, but it's not a full scholarship sport, right? So if I'm going to go to college and do both, I'm 100% going to be a football player who also plays baseball, not vice versa, because football has a full scholarship and baseball generally has partials. Okay, on top of that, let's say I'm Kyler Murray, right? To take an example of a guy who
I use that on the show all the
first-round pick. Kyler, your choices are you can go to the NFL where you'll be a starting quarterback playing in front of 60,000 people every game, and you'll be a household name everywhere, a star from game one of your rookie season.
big marketing money too.
Or you can continue with your baseball career, and we hope to see you in the big leagues in 2 to 3 years. And we hope that you really enjoy Beloit, or at the time it was Beloit.
And even Oakland, for his case, he was like, wait, that's the facility at the big league field? He's like, nah, I'm good.
The sewage, you just ignore that. That's just part
the
of
Possums. All right, I want to get caught up on 2 picks because then we're going to bring in our next guest. So Cash Mayfield, left-handed high school pitcher in Oklahoma, goes to the San Diego Padres. And Baseball America had him as one of the best deliveries in the draft. Ben Hess is going to the New York Yankees. Good SEC college starting pitcher. And actually was the name that
more.
He what?
Just means more.
Just means more. Well, here's the thing. Keith Law on our show the other day with the Baseball America Roundtable didn't understand why he wasn't hearing his name much in the first round. And there's Keith's answer, because he was like, I'm not hearing his name linked to the first round. Well, there you go. He is actually a first-round pick to the New York Yankees.
I think when you get to the back of the first round, one of the things that really generally rises up are these really polished college pitchers who have proven it, who've done it to some extent. I mean, we might see another guy. I think, again, I like kind of guys who might be coming. I think we might hear Luke Holman's name before too long as a guy who's also like this. Like these guys who have kind of gone through the wars already and have shown you at the college level, at the elite college level, what they can do. The other thing with Hess that is going to be fun to watch, but when you talk about projection with these guys and all, 6'5", 255. He's there. Yeah, if the question with him is going to be, can maintain that mobility? Can he maintain the flexibility? Not is he going to hold up? Not is he going to add strength? No, it's all there. That's already checked the box. And by the way, the Yankees are a team that has not had a whole lot of concerns about taking really big pitchers. We can go back to Dylan Betances. We can go back to Andrew Brackman, one of the few 6'10" guys that you'll see. Like they're a team that has had some success with that, and some, in Andrew Brackman's case, some disappointments as well.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But I was looking, they kind of slow played Ben Hess into the season with shorter outings, like 4 or 5 innings, whatever. I'm like, so that's what they do in the minor leagues.
Yeah,
I was like,
being prepared.
Yeah, that shouldn't be any deterrent at this point. But anyway, Cash Mayfield and Ben Hess, the next two. So we're going to step aside in a moment here on Valley Sports, and we'll stick with you here on YouTube to try and answer some more questions. But I'm seeing your questions coming through, including some super chats. We'll get to all of that as well. We are going to talk to Erik Bakich of the Clemson Tigers, the head coach, to go over some ACC selections that were taken. So Wake Forest analysis. Why not? We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on FT with Erik Bakich, the head coach of the Clemson Tigers, joining us right now. Erik, great to have you on. Happy draft day to you.
Hey, great to be on. Thanks for having me. Happy draft day to y'all as well.
Thank you. You spell your name correctly as Erik, E-R-I-K. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Only a few.
That's right.
Just the good ones.
Hey, so before we get to your guys, can you sum up some of the scouting reports that you have on players that have been picked so far? We're up to pick number 26 here. So what are some names that have stood out to you? Obviously, you can focus on some ACC players.
Well, yeah, I was thinking back not only to all the ACC players, from Wake Forest and Florida State, North Carolina, but we played Condon and Caglione. I've had Florida in the Super Regional, played Georgia every year. We play them every year. So, just seeing all the great players out of the ACC and SEC, and just why these two conferences not only dominate the draft, but a lot of the the accolades in the postseason baseball appearances as well.
Best player you saw this year? Best player you saw? You're obviously in the ACC. You played Condon. You played Caglione. Who's the best player you saw this year?
Well, we tried not to pitch to any of them.
You definitely did. Listen, I'm a Gator fan. You definitely didn't pitch to Caglione. You guys were like, nope. There's nobody on. Nope, we're walking him the whole super regional, which I get. But which one was the best?
Well, that's because he hit 2 jacks in his first 2 at bats, and then we were all done pitching to him. You know who was the best? The best was Chase Burns. It's just from an overall, competitor. He had everything going as he usually does, but it looked like he was pitching in the wrong league when we played him the day that we did. And then just each of those guys individually. Nick Kurtz, he is extremely athletic as a first baseman, and he made some plays in our series against us that he looked more like a shortstop playing first base. And then obviously Seaver King was playing third, but just a premium athlete as well. But then Caglione and Condon, their power is just in a different category. They miss hit balls out of sight over the fence. 2 guys that you just can see having a quick trajectory to the big leagues.
I'm not trying to ask you to give away too many secrets, but obviously when you go into a series, you're scouting as a coaching, trying to figure out the weaknesses. Could you find any with Cags and Condon? Like, okay, here's what we need to do to succeed against them. Were you able to give your pitcher something to work on there? Or was it like, well, just walk them and let's move on to the next guy?
Yeah, a lot of times it was don't let this guy beat you. But, you think about it as a hitter, the toughest approach to game plan against is someone who pitches inside with the fastball and really sticks it in there and makes you uncomfortable, and then tries to expand and bury the off speed away. So it makes the hitter just to have to pick one of those 2 pitches because it would be so hard to cover both versus someone who lives away with the fastball and stays away with the off speed. So with those guys in particular, it was more of, screw it. If we're going to pitch to them, let's try to get in there and just knowing that if we miss, if you miss on one side, you hit them, and if you miss on the other side, it's a homer. So it is tough in that regard. But most of the time we didn't pitch to them, but the times we did, we said, let's go right after them and challenge them.
Now, I don't live in the ACC, SEC land, so I don't get to see these college games. But I see the guys that are coming out of these leagues. You just recently, you were coaching in the Big Ten. You took Michigan to the College World Series. Are we at a point where college baseball is taking over some of the levels of the minor leagues?
Well, it's the best farm system because as the minor league is contracting, college baseball is growing and expanding and getting better, and more resources are being poured into college baseball. The draft is contracted. College baseball players are older. You've got the post-COVID bonus years that everyone had, but now you got the transfer portal, so there's a lot of older players, guys with credentials, college coaches pulling guys from all different leagues all the way down to Division 2 and 3, and just kind of collecting the best of the best. And you're seeing a lot of these guys gravitate to some of the best leagues, and those leagues doing very well. And, almost the competition and the caliber level within those leagues is just incredible.
Erik, I remember talking to you when you were at Michigan. You proposal to how to improve college baseball, how to kind of reorder some things to kind of allow more teams to successfully compete. And as we look at it now, a lot's changed in the last few years. You've seen it both at Michigan. Now you're at Clemson. Is there a worry, as great as the ACC, as great as the SEC is now, are we kind of becoming more and more in a world potentially of have and have-nots? And I kind of worry about where the have-nots are. They're going to keep doing it, keep driving at it, because this is a sport that at a lot of universities, especially smaller schools, it requires buy-in to kind of, okay, we're going to do this. Are we in some danger here if things don't get worked out?
I think we're definitely in a changing landscape. Rules and policies and legislation seems to change all the time. I think we're moving into a world where rosters will be a little smaller, but scholarships are going to be, all the way up. And that's naturally going to weed out some of the schools that maybe don't have the funding I still stand behind moving this college season back. I think we got to get the season out of Valentine's Day and put it into March. I think that'll help a lot of the smaller schools or smaller budget schools not have to travel as much, and just get out of basketball season as well, and allow these college fans of these schools to be able to separate basketball with baseball. But it would be a great money saving structure. It would improve the bottom lines of a lot of college programs just by shifting the season back a little bit. So I think there's a lot of policy change on the horizon. I don't know if the calendar is going to change from a schedule model standpoint, but I do think we are going to see some huge changes down the pike with reduced rosters and massively increased scholarships.
Massively increased scholarships, it seems like. Did want to ask you about a couple of other players before we get to your players. What with Honeycutt, a couple of years he's been at UNC now. Honeycutt and the FSU guys. We saw FSU guys. We saw Smith and Tibbs go back to back. What jumped out about them?
It's kind of like Condon and Caglione. It's the ability to change the game with one swing at any time. And then with Honeycutt, he's just, one of the most electric defender, athlete, players, clutch hitter. He has the clutch gene as well as anyone. And it's just the knack for getting big hits in the biggest moments, making, difficult plays look easy. But I think all those guys are big leaguers. They certainly have stood out in our league for a long time. But it's the ability to change the game with one play, whether it's a defensive play or an offensive swing. All those guys have the ability to impact the game in a major way right away.
All right. So on this show, I usually make guys make tough decisions, and I'm going to need you to make a tough decision. Who do you feel, based on the season that they had this year, is going to or should go first in the draft? Blake, Will, or Tristan?
Oh boy. Well, based on the season that they had, it's Blake Wright. Based on the prospect that they are, it's Tristan Smith. And then Will Taylor obviously is a dynamic player as well. He just got injured, and missed the last 6 weeks of the season. But Tristan Smith is going to go the highest on our team. I expect him to go, in the second round today is what I'm hearing. If not, then early tomorrow. But Blake Wright, the season that he had, the magical senior year that he had, that's storybook stuff. That's incredible. But he'll be a money-saving senior that'll go tomorrow at some point. And then, Willie T has been a, potential first-round prospect since high school. He's had a couple of injuries that have hindered him a little bit. But he went to the combine and ran the 5th fastest time. So his speed is back, and that was a question mark in scouts' minds. But he can play center field, even though he doesn't play center field. Hasn't played center field in our program. He should step right into center field in the minor leagues, and it certainly sounds like somebody's going to give him a chance to do that.
Erik, we're going to let you go after this, but I have to. It's going to be sad, but I said I'm a Gator fan, and the Game 3 of y'all Super Regional is one of the greatest games I've ever watched. If you guys would have won, I know Florida won and went on to the World Series, but that has to be, and you tell me, I know you guys lost, but for me, watching it was one of the most drama-filled, unbelievable plays. Your center fielder makes the catch, right? He hits the homer, he makes the catch, right? And then you have the whole home run thing, and you get kicked out of the game, and you're standing out on the field, and you're screaming, let's go, at the fans, right? I mean, it was one of the most incredible baseball games with everything on the line, right? And again, if Clemson would have won, I would have still said the same thing. Where does that rank for you? Because for me, it was like, this game has everything, and this is why I love watching college baseball.
Yeah, you're right. It was. It provided us with maybe the greatest defensive play certainly I've seen in my lifetime. I just think the catch Cam Cannarella made, there's a reason why he's going to be a very early pick, potentially the top overall pick next year. but he is one of the most explosive playmaking athletes I have ever witnessed in a baseball uniform. His clutch gene is off the charts, and he single-handedly made that game one of the most watched and electric games, an instant classic. Just the stakes of that catch, not just game on the line, season on the line, and that was just the best. It's the best defensive play I've ever seen. And you think about the big leaguers of all time, going back to Willie Mays in the World Series, Jim Edmonds with the, no look diving Superman play, and you put Cam Cannarella, his catch in that moment with anyone, if not number one, especially after hitting the homer to extend the game to begin with. So that game had a little bit of everything. I wish it didn't have the drama that it had at the end. But you can't control the umpires, especially when they get emotional, and so it's not just the coaches that get emotional. Umpires let it creep in too.
Hey, control the guy that was running the bases that got ejected, right? I don't know, control. I think it was your third baseman or first baseman. You gotta hold him back. But let me ask you this: why don't you guys have a warning track? Like your center fielder Cam goes back, and there's no warning track. There's like a little bit of a hill. And he's like, oh, no, I'm going to crash into this wall because there's no dirt.
Yeah, it's a unique, it's one of the unique, little nuances to our field that a lot of opposing teams have to get used to. It's a home field advantage, and it is. It's a hill, and it's got a little bit of an incline. And luckily for Cam, he navigates that hill every day. But for anyone else, that would have been a much more difficult. It already was at the highest degree of difficulty, but running up a hill, no look, catching it over the shoulder the way he did, that made it even more impressive.
All right, I got a pander for one of your incoming players for the 2025. Jason Foltz should be your starting third baseman for the 2025 season, just so you know. He plays on my son's team, so that was all I had to say. I don't care who else you have. That's your guy.
Good to know. I appreciate that.
Before you guys, when we're talking, Talon Bell, is he okay? I know he hurt his arm, obviously, in the spring in the playoffs. He's an Orlando guy, lefty, going to Clemson. But do you have an update on him for us?
Yeah, Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Florida. He did have surgery, but he will be back, and he'll be able to play for us this year. He may not be pitching right away, but he'll be able to hit and play the outfield. But we're excited about Talon. He's here with the rest of the freshman class in summer ball, and he's already started his rehab process. So excited to get him full strength. He's another dynamic player that we're excited about in the future.
Yeah, you guys keep grabbing those power guys down in Florida. I get it.
Why not?
We love the power guys. Erik Lassiter and squad. We love those guys.
That hurts. So my son and Kratz's son are playing against each other. My son plays for Power. Kratz's son does not. So they're playing each other tomorrow. So Power against whatever, Mafia, whatever you guys are.
Yeah, whatever the team name is. Obnoxious travel team names. I could do without that. I'm more of the American Legion type.
There you go. Yeah.
It's going to be good. Hey, Erik, great to have you. Thank you for hopping on to join us and breaking down your players and some others in the conference. It's been fun watching your team, too. So we appreciate the time.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. All right, let's stay here for a few minutes to get everyone caught up on the last several picks while we were having a little chat. So, JJ, I'll throw it over to you as we had Dante Nori, a high school outfielder from Michigan, taken by the Philadelphia Phillies. You want to start there?
Let's start with it. Let's go through them. Because Nori, we were talking about age in the draft earlier, and we were talking about reclassification and stuff. Nori, we had him lower on our board, but we were told by a lot of teams, well, some teams at least, that they weren't really considering him because he's almost 20.
He's a man.
He's going to turn 20 in October.
I'm 20.
And he's a high school kid. So there are teams who look at that and say, and there are other teams who say, you know what? You can overemphasize age. We're looking at the talent. And the talent here is this guy's really athletic. He can really run. There's a lot here to like. It does probably just mean he's going to have to be on a little bit of a faster track, right? You have to then be comfortable also Bobby Witt was a little bit old for his class, and it doesn't matter because you turn around and he's one of the youngest players in the big leagues. Now, I'm not calling Dante Nori that kind of player, but what I'm saying, though, is if you are comfortable that Nori can go to full season ball next year, maybe make high A, by the end of next year, double A in his second full year, okay, it's not really a problem anymore. But if he's going to be a guy who takes multiple years to get out of A ball, then you're talking about a little bit more of a problem because he'll turn around and he's a 25-year-old and you're like, oh, where is this? Because you kind of feel like that you're seeing the best of a player generally by the time they're turning 27, and that's a few years less away for a high school kid in this case than it is for a guy who's 17 or 18.
All right, I'll give you a few more because 2 out of the next 3 picks in the round were catchers. Walker Janik, who we spoke to on Baseball America Hot Sheet. Make sure you check out that show, too. Type in Baseball America wherever you get your podcasts and go find the Baseball America YouTube channel. We had a nice conversation with the best catcher in college baseball this year out of Sam Houston State. And there were really 4 catchers in a similar range where you felt like they were going to go. And here's one that goes to the Houston Astros, looking for some catching help in the future.
And they don't mind taking catchers. We've seen this in, they've traded away Corey Lee, but they had Corey Lee.
Yep.
Yainer Diaz. And now you add Yannick.
Bo Stubbs.
Garrett Stubbs.
And this is a guy
Stubbs, his brother, too.
This is a potential elite defender.
Right. And there's a lot more bat here, though, than some of the other. There's the potential that this guy, that Yannick could do all of it. That's what you hope. And again, when you take a catcher in the first round, the defense is always going to be the most important thing for a catcher. You can't play catcher if you can't catch. But if you can also do that and hit in the middle, hit 6-hole in the lineup, then you're out. You're providing added value because the glove is so important at that position.
I don't know for sure. I'll have to go back and check a mock, but Slade Caldwell goes to the Arizona Diamondbacks at 29. He might have been 29 for Carlos Collazo. Can you do a quicker check?
We had 19.
19.
Oh, wow. You had the 9 in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I mean, he's 5'9", 182. Because I was looking back, the Diamondbacks have taken guys like Alec Thomas, Dalton Varsho, Corbin Carroll. This fits that mold, doesn't it?
They like this profile. By the way, he's not from Mississippi, but he was committed to Mississippi, Ole Miss.
Who? Caldwell?
Caldwell. So he's an Arkansas kid, but he was committed to Mississippi. But no, this is a type that they like. It is funny, like we try when we're doing all of our pre-draft analysis and all, you look at what teams like, and sometimes you can be led wrong because sometimes teams will just go in an entirely different direction. But you absolutely can see some kind of types here with teams. And again, this is a team that has a type and has had a lot of success with that type. They like their athletic, and they don't really need them to be the biggest guy. If you put a lineup out there of Alec Thomas, Corbin Carroll, and Slade Caldwell, that would be they may not be able to ride the roller coaster ride, but they'll get you a lot of they'll cover a lot of ground in the gaps.
Come on, they're not that short.
Yeah, he's
come
5'9".
on.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, the end of round 1, the Texas Rangers pick a catcher, which again I'm looking at mock drafts, including I think Baseball America throwing out there that the Texas Rangers were very, very focused on selecting a catcher, and they do so in Malcolm Moore, catcher out of Stanford.
And that is the guy who we had him 31. So this
Close.
is
So
right at that
close.
range, right there, close, very close. But Moore is a guy who's had a lot of track record. This is a guy who in high school was considered one of the better prospects in his class, but it was a Stanford commit. That's one school. Maybe changing a little bit now. Now I think it's more of like the SEC schools. If the guy's an LSU commit,
he's already getting his signing bonus. Is that what you're saying?
He's probably doing okay for himself. How about that? But Stanford has long had it's going to cost you extra to buy out a Stanford education in the old world when we didn't have NIL. And so it wasn't that shocking that he got to school. But at the same time, he's kind of at college been a little bit more of it's thought that his bat was more advanced than the glove, and the glove's gotten better, and the bat's maybe not as advanced right now as we kind of hope. So we'll see how that works out.
Yes, and also just to backtrack for a moment, I was looking at the history for the Phillies lately. They've gone with a high school player the last 4 first-round picks, and they've hit on some of them too. I mean, I know it's early for the recent ones. Justin Crawford, who we spoke to recently, had a nice futures game. He's progressing nicely, starting to fill out Aiden Miller has jumped.
Futures gamer.
Futures gamer, and he's jumped up your rankings list as much as anyone on the top 100, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the big risers of this year. Dominated low A, has had kind of a little bit more up and down in high A, but then when you talk to evaluators, they just say he's better in a lot of ways than what they thought he was coming out of high school.
I talked to Linda about him. I talked to Adam Lind, the hitting coach in Lakewood, and he was saying supremely talented, and they haven't even scratched the surface on a lot of stuff, which is high praise coming from a big leaguer like Linda.
We always want it to be like, hey, we got to be patient. We have to be patient. But I'll tell you this. When a guy goes out there and in his first year does it, that's a really strong indicator, because the best way I can put it is that doesn't guarantee you success. But the guys who really hit the ground running in pro ball, the success rate of those versus the guys who seem over their head in year one, if you just said, I'm going to take the guys who hit the ground running, you're playing with house money at that point, because of the guys who don't succeed in year one, some of them will figure it out, but a lot of them are the guys who just don't have the talent to figure, or whatever it is.
Assimilation in the pro ball. Yeah,
they're getting weeded out. Whereas the guys who, for one thing, also the guys who do figure it out in year one, maybe they hit a bump down the road, but you then give them a little bit extra time too, because you already seen what they can do. You want to now see if they can catch up to it. The guy who can't hit an A-ball in his first year, if you don't hit an A-ball in his second year, you're at that point kind of like, we're probably not going to.
It's a long shot. The guy I always think of is Brandon Moss. Brandon Moss went to low A and just annihilated it. And I remember talking to him almost at the end of his big league career, and I was like, season, and he goes, man, low A was so easy. He's like, every organization says 2-0, you're getting a heater. He's like, I've been hitting heaters for years. and then he ended up struggling, but that ended up it's exactly what you said.
He's from kind of my area growing up, so that was pretty good, the accent, I have to say.
Yeah. No. One of my good friends.
Yeah.
Let me get a couple fan questions in here. So first off, Andy said, hey, Scott, was J.J. Weatherholt for the Cardinals a huge grab for them? And also asked where they're going for the third round. That's far back. And I feel your pain if you're a Cardinals fan. You're like, damn, I'm all excited. I got Weatherholt. Now I got to wait until tomorrow.
but that's also a smart strategy here, right? Which is you could do this two ways, right? You could say, I'm going to spread it out. If you're not picking to the third round, what are you spread it out for? I know you can get an 11th rounder. I know you can get a guy. But the one thing when we talk about spreading this money out, there's only certain categories that's really a possibility, right? College bats, you're not spreading that out because you're not floating that guy down, right? Like there's not the college hitter who's like, don't draft me. And is trying to fall to pick 82, right? High school arms and maybe a little bit of high school position players, or maybe the injured college arm. That's pretty much the guys you can float further down in the draft, because the other guys are just getting picked. You always run the risk if you're saying we're going to target a guy down the road. The Padres wanted Jay Groom. I promise you that. They wanted Jay Groom. The Red Sox said, hey, we're taking him. We'll figure it out. We'll sign him. He's going to sign. And that happens. You could get your pocket picked if you've got a target. But if you're picking high and then you're not picking for a long time, take the dude, especially in this case, take the dude who's going to take all your slot and maybe even a little bit more, but you're going to have a stud that you've added in the draft rather than, okay, we're going to take some chances.
And the name I don't think we mentioned was William Schmidt, who was supposed to be a first rounder, didn't go in the first round because he essentially told teams, don't pick me.
William Schmidt was one who we didn't have him in our final mock. It's kind of not a big surprise that he came out and said, we were hearing rumblings that he maybe wanted to go to LSU for a couple of weeks, that that's probably where it's headed. But at the same time, this is also where this dynamic has changed, right? A high school arm who's a first-round talent, Jack Leiter was a guy who was like that. But Jack Leiter also is the son of a big leaguer, right? Like, for most people, the possibility 5 years ago of turning down life-changing money in the first round, it's a hard thing to do. Nowadays, you're turning down life-changing money, but you're also getting a pretty good consolation prize in NIL and all going to school. And you also have the chance that if William Schmidt is as good as William Schmidt probably thinks he is, you're also talking about a guy who can look at what top college arms get at the top of the first round and go, hey, if this works out, I could quadruple my money in the draft.
Yeah, I'll swing it to AJ for a moment, because if you think about it, with someone like him, label his best curveball in the draft, great spin on his pitches, goes to LSU. He's making what? Probably 300 to 500K next year.
Maybe not his first year.
That's high.
That's high for a first year.
They pay you more for staying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
so he's getting six figures.
Or for transferring in.
He's getting six figures.
In
he's
from
probably
school.
he might be getting 100 grand.
Okay. And now, if he does shine at a place that just recently had someone shine, he can develop there.
Yeah,
and then maybe be a top 10 pick, make a ton of money,
or
and then get to the big.
Or he plays the game, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to transfer."
Right.
And they get like these agents, and they're like, "Oh," they'll call the coach and be like, "Hey, we have an offer for 500 grand. Can you match it?" If they say no, then they go to another school.
Right.
Baseball doesn't have the money that football does.
No,
we can
but they
set
are
that
at the top end, though.
I'm not
there
saying
are
they're
people
not.
at the top.
I'm saying the top 20, 30 players, though, probably can make some decent coin. Not seven figures, obviously, but well into the six-figure range, right? We tried to guess what Skeens was getting.
Players making six figures.
Yeah, we tried to guess what Skeens was at for his last year. It was probably a pretty healthy number, him and Dylan Cruz.
I've heard of juniors who are getting six figures to stick around to be seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. That's something that never – that was something where it never existed before. If you were a junior and you were draftable, go, because as a senior, you're going to make nothing.
True.
All right, so thanks for the questions. We have more to get to as well. Let's see if I can sneak in one more before we get to break. I had one more from Jay. Does the lack of WAR, wins above replacement, generated by a first baseman limit their upside as a first-round pick given the dependence on the hit tool?
Maybe, but here's the other problem. How many teams have terrible first basemen now? There are some teams with some studs, but there are also a number of teams right now where you look at first base and DH and you're like, what are they doing? Well, okay, if you try to underemphasize something, you're like, hey, you're only getting 3.2 WAR out of that guy. Well, yes, WAR penalizes defensive, your defensive value as a first baseman means you're not going to produce much WAR. I still want the guy who hits 300, 400, 500 at first base rather than the guy who hits 220, 320, 420. And there's not enough of those guys right now.
Mm-hmm. Good call. And, of course, that question related to Nick Kurtz getting taken by the Oakland A's, 4th overall. All right, we're going to step aside. Good little recap so far. We'll go over some of those top picks and as well as a few picks that have happened since we spoke. All next on FT. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Foul Territory Draft Takeover in Arlington, Texas. We're in Arlington. Keith Law is in Fort Worth at the draft itself. Let's talk about it right now. Keith from The Athletic. Check out all of his work, both on Twitter and, of course, on The Athletic. Subscribe to The Athletic to see everything going on. Keith, great to talk to you again. So let's first get your overall take on the first round. Most surprising thing you've noticed so far?
I don't know if I was surprised, maybe can I say most interesting, is this was the most college-heavy draft, maybe in history. It's the latest we've ever seen. First high school player taken, 9th overall. I think there were 9 high school players total in the first round. I mean, this was just extremely college-heavy. And I know we've even talked about this with you guys, right? People said this was not a great high school class this year. Even so, that is about as college heavy. People complain all the time there's no talent in college baseball. Well, they're lying, obviously, because they just took a whole bunch of college players in the first round. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's really interesting that teams just went so heavily in that direction. We'll see when we get to they're in the comp round now. If we get in the second round with some of these big high school names still on the board, will they come off and maybe get big money, but not end up actual first round picks?
Keith, when you look at the top of this first round, we did see also there were all guys who were kind of in that discussion, but we saw some things kind of fall a little bit differently. The one that jumped out to me probably was kind of thought that Condon was going to go 2. What did you think of the Reds' decision there going with Burns? And is there any other top 5 picks that really surprised you that they went where they did?
It made me mildly surprised just because was so convinced. Like, Charlie Condon's the best player in the draft. He won the gold. He's super talented. He's athletic. How can you not take that guy? That said, I'll defend the Reds. Not that they need my defense, but they took the best pitcher in the class. Their scouting director was there the night I saw Burns I think it was his best outing of the year. So I can certainly understand if that colored the decision. I can understand them saying, look, we always need pitching. We play in a hitter's park. Developing pitching is difficult. We have plenty of bats. Sorry, they apparently just turned the broiler on here. So I totally understand them taking Burns. How much can you argue? It's like we got the best pitcher in the class. I had Burns a little bit over Smith. People may disagree, but if the Reds can say we got the best pitcher in the entire draft class, that's probably a good outcome or two. I was mildly surprised. We heard all spring the A's were going to take Kratz. And I think a lot of people said, well, they're going to take him because he walks a lot. The A's, and this is apparently still 2002. But I heard so much in the last week. So much in the last week that it's, teams are off of Kratz. They're scared by the shoulder. They think maybe it's just walks, but not enough of the rest of the offensive package. And then they took him after all, which, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Maybe I just bought into too much of the gossip in the last week. I think we just I personally get very tunnel vision on all the gossip the week leading up to the draft. And you forget, that they liked him all spring. That's probably who they wanted to take all along. And I just listened to some of the wrong stories.
Keith, has there been a surprise for you? I mean, I know besides the college, but like a player that's either gone higher or lower. And then after this, I'm going to ask you about Jack Caglione, who everyone says is my favorite player of all time.
So higher than expected. And I'm not saying anything bad about the player, but Dante Nori going in the first round definitely surprised me. I know he's super athletic. He's really talented. I knew area scouts who loved him. 80 runner, at least a 70 defender in center. I think there's some little things you can do with the swing to get to maybe some more power. He looks like he's built for power, just hasn't shown a lot of it. He is going to be 20 in October. I mean, that is old for a high school player. And everybody is so obsessed with age of position players. It's a huge variable in a lot of teams' models. And the Phillies just aren't one of those teams, I guess. I'm not saying in any way it was a bad pick, but just surprising. Also, Ryan Waldschmidt slipping out of the first round. I had heard his name so much this spring. I saw him. I thought he was definitely one of the probably 10 to 12 best college position players in the draft. Thought there was a chance he'd even go in the top 10. I did hear there was a little medical thing that scared a few teams off at the end. He went, I think it was 31. It was out of the first round. That's definitely the guy who most surprised me that he slipped out of the first round.
Got it. All right, so let's go to Caglione. I've already gone on my soapbox and saying I don't understand how he goes from the potential number 1 to 6. I mean, he fell so far, right?
Yeah.
Del Rosa came out and said he's going to be a two-way guy. Listen, I'm a Florida fan. He's not a pitcher for me. Now, he had his velocity dipped at the end, right? To me, You stick that big dude at first base. You say, go hit me 40. You play a gold glove first base. And that's it. That's the pick for me. So why would they come out and say he's a two-way guy? Because if you watch him pitch at Florida, he's already had Tommy John. He had it in high school. What do they see as being the upside in letting him pitch?
I'm with you 100%, and I'm going to ask you a question when I finish answering yours. I think there's a ton of risks. There's risk he gets hurt again. He's just risking pitching in the first place. But I think it's a lot of effort in the delivery. He's way across his body. He's already had the elbow injury. That's not great. And I know a lot of folks said he's probably just a reliever as a pitcher. I wonder if this was him. Does he really want to do it? And they said, all right, you can do this at the start. We've seen a lot of teams do that going back. Remember the Red Sox doing that with Casey Kelly. Casey Kelly said, I'll only sign if you let me play shortstop for another year. And they did, and he didn't hit, and then they convinced him to just be a pitcher. I think he actually made a lot of money in Korea. So I would say that worked out for him eventually. You said let Jack go out as a first baseman, be a gold glove first baseman, and go hit bombs. Would you try him anywhere else? I've only seen him at first. He looks like a decent athlete. Obviously, he's got a hose of an arm. Would you try him in right field?
Why not? He can run. He runs better, I think, than people give him credit for. You see, he's gigantic. First of all, he's like 6'5", like 240. I don't know what they list him as, but he's a monster. So, yeah, he could probably play he could play a corner for sure. But he's really good, though. Like ground balls, he has good movement. He's quick. He can pick the ball. So, I don't know. I mean, would you try it? Why not? I mean, if you sign Pasquantino to a long-term contract, right? Why would you not? If he's there for a while, where else is Jack going to play? I mean,
Just
you have
try
DH.
it.
Or
Just try
stick
it.
him in the
Just
outfield in the
try
minor
it.
leagues. Yeah.
They did it with
That's
Hosmer.
what I think. I think he can do it.
Yeah.
Hey, Keith, I got one for you that I think you're going to like. So, remember we did that draft roundtable show the other day with Shooter Hunt, Carlos Collazo, and myself. Apparently the Yankees were watching, and they saw you talk up Ben Hess and say, I don't get why this guy won't go in the first round. Why is nobody talking about him? And the Yankees were like, shut up, Keith. We are taking him in the first round.
So funny, after that, I got a text from a national guy that just said, he obviously watched the roundtable, and it just said, shh. I'm trying to get him to the second round. And I'm like, nobody's listening to me. I guess maybe somebody was listening to me. But as soon as they picked him, I'm like, thank God I planted a flag on that to say, hey, I think this guy's pretty good. I didn't get it. I don't get why he didn't get more love. I thought it was a great pick by the Yankees. I see their system a lot just by virtue of living in the Mid-Atlantic, and they don't have a guy like him. They've traded some pitching. They've graduated some pitching. He really also fits for them, and they love those guys with certain characteristics on the fastball, big extension out over the front side. He's really interesting. And now I kind of just personally pleased I'll probably get to see him a lot the next year or two and see what they do with him, because I do think there's little things that the Yankees do really well in pitching development that align well with what Hess can do, what he's already shown he can do physically, ways that I think he can get even better.
All right, so you said earlier, you had alluded to the fact that, and he was talking about Jack sliding down, or why is he sliding down? Is there somebody that if the draft was still in June would have been taken in a different spot because they were still playing baseball and there wasn't this lull of nobody playing?
I wonder if Braden Montgomery would have gone higher because of the ankle, right? Did teams – there were you guys probably heard a lot of this too. There were so many players with medicals this year. I was like, just show me the guy with the clean medical because I don't think he exists. And – somebody, I won't say who the player was, but somebody was like, oh, it's both shoulders and a rib. I was like, a rib? Who has a medical for a rib?
Too much.
But, it just seemed to be that kind of year. And I wonder if that was one with Montgomery where he was playing really well and then he broke his ankle. Like, if you just sort of captured him at the moment right before the injury, does he go a lot higher? But I'll flip it around. Like, I think both Christian Moore and Kalen Culpepper did better because they finished so strongly, right? Christian Moore goes to Omaha and posts those insane exit velocities in that game. JJ, you had a great tweet about that. What did you have? More balls hit at 115 or higher than the Cleveland Guardians have in the big leagues ever since they started measuring this stuff.
A lot of people wanted to let me know that they use metal bats in college baseball.
Whoa. Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
My
really?
mind was blown. I had not noticed that. It was good to notice that for the first time many years ago.
Speaking of that, where's Where is the ankle located on the body? I'm just wondering.
It's low. It's pretty low on the body.
But what, like, is it like, would you consider it?
Don't lead the witness.
No, I'm not leading the witness.
Don't lead the
Would you
witness.
consider it like this part of the body, or would you consider it like this part of the body?
Nobody's debating that.
It is a lower body injury.
Okay,
certainly-
because
Yeah, go.
I got yelled at for saying that he broke his leg, and I consider the ankle part of the leg. If you get into the foot, then the foot is different than the ankle, right? The foot bone connects to the ankle bone connects to the.
And I think like Ruben Tejada broke his leg, on the slide, not
on the slide.
Yeah, on the Chase Utley slide.
You know what I'll tell from a practical perspective, though, with a leg, knee is a whole separate category. Ankle, it's the same thing if he broken like his, what's that bone? The tibia, the shin bone. Like, I just want to know he can run okay, right? That's the whole, to me, they're functionally the same. You can recover from those. Do they run okay? And I never heard, maybe you guys heard differently, I never heard anything he had like ligament damage or anything that would make me worry about him running long term. So to me, it's like, it is in the category of a leg injury, in that I think he'll be fine. As long as he comes back and he runs fine, there was no ligament damage anywhere, it shouldn't affect his draft stock. But, he couldn't go to workouts. Maybe teams they just want to see what he looks like when he's back 100%. I thought he was going, I had heard there was a chance he was going to go 4. JJ, I don't know if you heard anything along those lines. I definitely didn't think he was going to get out of the top 10.
Keith, I don't have the perfect answer to your question, but this is the most college players taken in the top 34 picks, 24 players taken in the top 34 picks. I've got to work on another query to try to get over the top 30. But top 30, but 24 of the top 34. The thing that also stands out to me is I don't think that this is going to be, I know it was a bad high school year, but I also think there are structural forces that are not going to surprise me if we end up breaking that record going forward. What do you think? Like, I think with the rise of NIL, transfers, smaller minors, put it all together, and I think we're headed that direction.
I agree with everything you just said. I think that's perfect analysis. I think especially if Major League Baseball does further contract the minors, like they're rumored to want to do, they just want to farm, no pun intended, out a lot of the player development to the colleges. I also think this realignment, which don't ask me what conference some of these schools are in because I can't remember anymore, but you're going to see some particularly powerful conferences, like some super conferences. We already have our power conferences. I think the strong get stronger. Between NIL money, between some of the TV deals that we're going to see, between the consolidation into some of these larger national, travel's going to suck, but these national conferences, I think you're going to see a lot of the, William Schmidt's, the timing of his decision was not great, but a kid saying, I'm going to go pitch at LSU for 3 years, there's worse things to do, actually. A lot of guys go to LSU, get a whole lot better, come out as very high draft picks. There's a guy starting the All-Star game in 2 years who did something along those lines. So, I absolutely think we're going to be more college heavy, and I'm fine with that. Like, if high school kids want to sign, if we think they're ready, great. But I also think there's a lot of value for players going to college, getting more mature, filling out physically, and we get 3 more years to scout them. And for teams that rely heavily on the batted ball and pitch data, we get all of that for 3 years, from the summers and from the springs. So I think everybody kind of wins when a lot more players do end up in college.
The thing that jumps out to me about this is we talk about super conferences, and we already are there with NIL and 11.7. But we're heading towards a world where we're probably going to have 30 to 33 full scholarships if the school's willing to pay for them. And we know which schools are going to be the ones that are going to be willing to pay for them. And so if we think the super conferences are going on now, just wait till when LSU can spend 33 scholarships, and most teams out there are a lot of teams that don't get to 11.7 right now. So we're really headed in that direction before too long.
Yeah. A lot of Raising Cane's endorsement deals down there in Louisiana.
Marucci, don't forget about Marucci.
Yeah.
Yes, Marucci. Yep.
There's going to be a lot of great chicken finger eating. Okay. Keith, great to have you. Thank you really so much for the time. We really appreciate it, obviously, from the draft there. Lastly, it was a good experience. It's like in a rodeo or something, right, this year?
If it wasn't for the music, they were blasting music. It was otherwise great. This is a great venue. I could see everything. The media's in a good spot where, like, we could see the players who were here. They were kind of walking in front of us. Like, got a little emotional seeing Kalen up like that. Like, I'm a parent. I get it. It was pretty awesome. Like, this was probably, last year on the field at the Seahawks Stadium was good, but I think this was probably the best overall setup they've had so far. It worked really well. Like, it is nice to see. Obviously, I pick on Major League Baseball sometimes for some of the decisions, but this was a good spot. They put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, that looks like a win. I like it. Keith, enjoy the rest. Thank you very much. Talk soon.
My pleasure, guys.
See ya. Make sure you follow all of Keith's coverage in The Athletic. Go get a subscription. Check it out. And, of course, also Baseball America has all of your coverage as well of prospects, the draft, the whole Teddy Cahill, the college expert, next on FT. FT fam, thanks for hanging out with us. We're at the MLB Players House in Arlington, Texas. We're at Troy's. We're finishing up our draft coverage over the next hour with the rest of the picks that are rolling through right now. And we're going to bring in our friend Teddy Cahill, who covers the college game in depth. Remember at one point, were you on that show when we gave him the nickname? What was the nickname we gave him? Teddy Condon, right?
I think.
Oh, we're going to bring him on in a sec. So we'll get to him in just a moment, right? But when we were going over some draft coverage, we definitely we're focusing on what he was bringing to the table at the college ranks. Anyway, we'll get to Teddy in a moment. Let's get caught up on some picks.
Because we got to catch up. There's a lot of picks.
Yeah. So do you want to start with Brody Brecht because he was discussed so frequently and he didn't make it into the first round? Some people thought maybe late, like a Dodgers pick who can help to corral the control. What do you think? Now, obviously, that he went.
If I was going to pick a team for Brody, and you said, hey, you've got this great arm, really wild, the Dodgers would be that perfect, like, hey, they'll take him, they'll mold him. Dodger Stadium's a good place to pitch. Rockies? That's going to be a little tougher.
Rockies at 38.
Now, I will say, if you're talking about, like, how do you pitch at altitude, 100's 100. Like, timing is something, if you can mess with timing, but at the same time, it's just it's going to be a tough place to pitch. And Brody Brecht is a pitcher. It's not just a tough place to pitch in the majors. They've also got some environments in the minors that are, especially when you get at the upper levels, Albuquerque. There are places where they've had a little trouble developing pitchers over the years. And I'm a little worried for that for Brody Brecht. That said, that is one of the best pure arms just for rearing back and blowing guys away if he can throw a semblance of strikes, which you got a little better. He's a young guy, two-way player until this year, so there's some reasons to think hopefully this gets better, but there are concerns as well.
Because he needs to learn to pitch.
Yeah.
And the track record's not there with the Rockies teaching guys how to pitch.
Right, and he didn't really develop on that front in college at Iowa, right? That was the knock. Like, obviously, yes, like JJ mentioned, he got himself down to, I think it was about 14% on the walk rate. That is still insanely high.
That's high.
You know him, but he was better, and I'll give them credit at Iowa. They pitched him more. Joe Boyle. Joe Boyle was 100 miles an hour at Notre Dame, and every year they would start the year by saying it's going to be Joe Boyle's year. And then every year they would get about 3 weeks in, and the coaching staff would pull their hair out, and Joe Boyle would barely pitch. And then the Reds took him, I think it's 5th round, and he's now made the majors with the A's. Still wilder than wild. But I remember when Boyle was coming up through the Red system, the key thing you have to do with a guy like that, again, this is a little different because they did let Breck pitch, but you kind of got to let him go through that stretch where it's like, look, I don't care if you walk 3 in the first. Here's the ball for the second, and let's get better. Because some of these guys, I do think, get to the point where, like, they start looking to the dugout like, okay, I walk to check, please. Am I getting out of here? And you got to get them to the point where it's like, no, this is yours, and you're going to finish it up, figure it out.
You want to talk about Tommy Tanks, too?
Tommy Tanks, 40 to the A's.
That's a pick.
You know what? That's an A's pick. Because,
100%.
Because he puts the ball in play. He tries to hit homers, but he'll take his walks, right? Defense might not. That was kind of the knock on Tommy White, right? Like, where can he play? But he did okay at LSU at third base. He's gotten better. So this seems like an A's pick to me. They're like, okay, if we can get.
And they got Kurtz.
Upside. Yeah.
They got
their first and third baseman.
They got their first baseman and the first baseman.
The first baseman and their
Is that
DH.
your feeling? Yeah.
Their first baseman or DH, maybe.
Yes.
Or that.
Tommy Tanks is Billy Butler. We're going to get to Teddy Cahill right now. But,
okay, let's do it.
But Tommy Tanks is Billy Butler.
Country breakfast.
Wow, okay.
Take 2.
Who also played third base early in his Royals career.
Also a DH when he got
That's
called
right.
up.
Baseball America's Teddy Cahill joining us right now. And you can jump right into this conversation if you'd like, Teddy. We just went over 2 very notable college names from the past season. Tommy White, taken by the A's. Brody Brecht, taken by the Rockies. Your thoughts on those 2, and then we'll go earlier in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Tanks guy. Like, nobody has hit more home runs in college baseball in the 21st century than Tommy White. Just an incredibly consistent and productive power hitter. We'll see how that all translates, but I actually think he has one of the knocks on him is that there's some swing and miss in there, and like how pure is the hit tool. But I mean, the consistency with which he attacked college baseball was really impressive. He really has, going back to when he was a high schooler, just the intensity with which he wants to hit and the way he attacks the baseball. Like, I think it's outstanding and rises to all the moments. Like, I really think that's a guy that, if you're getting him at the start of the second round, I think you can feel really good about that. Brody Brecht, I know JJ, hit on that really well. That's been a player JJ has, that kind of fits the JJ really well in terms of, analyzing and figuring out where that fits. But, Iowa, he comes from Iowa. He played a lot of football. He did quit playing football at one point in college. So, how much, that certainly helped, but how much did that hold him back just playing all of that football? Obviously it's good for you, but just in terms of the polish and everything, I do think there are more strides to be made. He has to make those strides in pro ball, obviously, but I do think there's hope for him to be able to make some of the necessary improvements.
All right, Teddy, where did Tommy White go to high school?
Somewhere in Florida. That's all I got on that.
Okay, great answer. I'm just going to ask Kratz how many Pennsylvania kids have been drafted so far, because there's a long list of Florida kids that keeps popping up. I'm confused.
Yeah, that's what the draft is. Potential and overratedness.
JJ Weatherholt is a Pennsylvania kid, so
yeah, there's one. There you go. They got one.
Although West Virginia is going to be like, wait.
Yeah.
We're claiming we do not.
He's from Mars, Pennsylvania. Let's not erase Mars, Pennsylvania. Like, great draft moment. right there.
So, Teddy, let's rewind a little bit earlier in this draft. It's a very college-heavy first round. Who's kind of the Teddy Cahill? You've seen this class. You've seen these players going back to writing recruiting rankings about a lot of them several years ago when they're coming out of high school. But who's someone who jumps out to you as like, hey, I really think that this guy is someone to keep an eye on. He's going to be maybe even a little bit better than we expect.
I mean, like I just mentioned him. I keep bringing him up. Like I love JJ Weatherholt. Like for him to go to the Cardinals at 7, I think that's a fantastic value. I think that, if he hadn't gotten hurt, there's no reason why we would have been talking about him falling out of the top 2 or 3 picks, potentially going first overall as he was rated coming into the season. I understand there are some concerns about multiple hamstring injuries, like what happens, if that's a more of a concern rather than just 2 isolated incidents. But assuming that, that risk can be mitigated or, it's not a problem, I think that he's a guy that really has an incredible tool set, led the nation in hitting a year ago, stole 36 bases, hit 16 home runs, has a chance at least to play shortstop. We'll see if he actually sticks there, but at least has that chance. To me, that's a absolute, I don't want to say an absolute steal. It's just a really good pick for the Cardinals at 7.
Ted, the other question I want to ask you is we had a couple of guys. Owen Pano pulled out. William Schmidt basically said, don't draft me, I'm going to LSU. We're seeing, we've always seen some of this, but is it becoming more prevalent because of the environment we're in now, or is it more of kind of, this is the same old of what we've seen? Because we did see guys going back to, we even had Josh Bell saying, please don't draft me. Okay, I will go if you want to pay me $5 million.
$5 million will do it.
I think that it's relatively normal. William Schmidt pulling out is abnormal. I will say that. The top prep righty pulling out, that feels very abnormal. But Pano's a guy that, at least on our rankings, is like 87th, I think it is. I think if you look at other boards, you'll find him similarly ranked. So that's a guy that would be valued, according to that, somewhere in the 3rd round. And he probably wants top 50 pick, let's just say probably, to buy him out of his commitment. He hears, well, that's probably not going to happen. And so he pulls out. Charlie Bates at Stanford, probably a pretty similar thing right there. Both Schmidt and Bates are local. Schmidt in Baton Rouge, Bates in Palo Alto. So I think some of that's relatively normal. What I do find to be different is William Schmidt just being as good as he is, not waiting to find out, is somebody willing to take me? That's a demographic, high school right-handed pitchers that Major League Baseball teams have really steered away from. There are some teams that just flat out won't touch that in the 1st round. And so I think that kind of has helped steer a guy like that to college. But, obviously there are a lot of factors there. But like you said, JJ, we see this every year to a certain extent. There are a couple guys at least that officially withdraw from the draft.
Last one for you, Teddy. Who's your favorite player? And you can go towards the top, obviously. Condon went 3. Some people thought you should have gone 1 if all is equal. But anywhere on the board, who's your favorite player? Who do you think will have the best major league career, especially on the college side, which is easy for you to hit this year since that was the focus?
Yeah, that's really tough. I just want to go back and talk about JJ Weatherholt again. I'll step away from that, and I will say that Travis Bazzana is an incredible talent. I think that some of the reasons I preferred Weatherholt to Bazzana are just I felt like Weatherholt at least had a shot to play shortstop, whereas Bazzana flat out does not. But if you just look at the hitter that the Guardians selected 1st overall, and they find a spot for him on the field. And I will be very curious to see where that is given, their infield logjam and the fact that they signed a second baseman to a $100 million contract 2 years ago. Where does he fit? I don't really know, but the combination of feel for hitting, of power, of speed, that's all legit. And he is crazy in the best possible way. just in terms of how he wants to improve and how dedicated he is. He's a psychology major, I believe it is, at Oregon State. I'd have to check my notes to find the exact major, but I think it's psychology. And he says that he did that because he thought that would be most useful for him in his baseball career, that after his baseball career, he'll figure out what he wants to do and go attack learning how to do that. But for now, he wanted to learn the mental side of the game better and how he could relate to his teammates better. And so that was what he wanted to focus on while he was at Oregon State.
A great insight as always. Thanks for the time, Teddy. Enjoy the rest of the draft, and we'll catch you soon on another edition of Hot Sheet, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That's Teddy Cahill. Watch his and follow his coverage over at Baseball America. Get yourself a Baseball America subscription and come right back to FT. Ruben Amaro, former GM, joining us next. Seen so far, and what are your thoughts on some of the picks?
Actually, I think I just lost your audio there. You guys got me now?
Yeah, we got you. You hear us, Ruben?
Okay. Well, I got you guys now.
Awesome. Thoughts on the draft first. Let's go into the overall take on anybody that you liked or any picks that stood out. I don't know, if there's any favorites that you had.
Not necessarily favorites because I don't follow as tightly with the draft as typical, but one of the most impressive things, obviously, is what happened with Wake Forest group. I mean, obviously, I haven't seen that since Connecticut, and some guys that were picked in 3 of the top 10, I guess, not quite in the top 10. In fact, this is almost unprecedented for those guys to be picked so high from one organization or from one club. Pretty darn impressive. One of the cool things about that is that my daughter is a Deke, so or was a Deke, and she graduated from Wake Forest a few years back. So it's kind of neat for her as well.
Ruben, you've been in that room many a year. What is it that the public doesn't understand about how a draft works on the team side? How is it different than maybe what they perceive?
Well, there's so many different factors that are associated. I mean, typically when we went into the draft, we tried to make sure that we planned for being able to pick the best player available, who we thought was, the most talented player. And I think in different situations, it changes for certain teams. I know that for us, in the year that we picked Aaron Nola, for instance, we were really short in pitching, starting pitching at our organization. We thought it was really important for us to try to replenish. We had been so good with our starters for years, and I know that if you don't have starting pitching, you just cannot have success. And we needed somebody to get there fast at that time, and he was a pretty fast mover. We didn't know what his ceiling was going to be, but he ended up working out pretty darn well for us. And it continues to be a quality pitcher in the major leagues. But there's so many different factors that are associated with it, whether the guy's signable, whether the guy is his health issues, his background, what program did he come from? Is he able to handle being in Philadelphia and being a championship player in the Philadelphia Phillies franchise and organization? Those were some of the things that we would talk about and kick around. It's not just about pure talent. It's about whether this player is able to handle being a champion at the very highest level.
Is that being competitive? Like, are teams being competitive when you take, oh, well, he might not be able to sign here. Like, if you think he's the best player, why not give him the money? It's almost like, because you've seen every aspect of baseball from player to front office to coach to broadcasting.
We got to take a break.
Okay, we're going to take a break.
Okay. We're going to step aside for a quick moment, Ruben. Be right back, FT
No
fan.
problem.